Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harrisburg City Council's public hearing / work session. My name is Wanda R.D. Williams. I'm the chair, and all of City Council are members. Today is Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021, and I'm now calling this meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. Mr. Petrosky, please do the roll call.
Mr. Allett.
Present.
Ms. Bowers.
Present.
Ms. Daniels. Ms. Green.
Present.
Mr. Madsen.
Here.
The Majors.
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Petrosky. Ms. Daniels is excused for this evening's meeting. We now will go into public hearing, and Public Works Committee Chair is Mr. Majors. Before Mr. Majors begins the meeting, I must indicate to everyone that following the Public Works Committee hearing, we will have public comment, we will adjourn, and then we will go into Harrisburg City Council's work session. Mr. Majors.
Yes, President Williams.
I'm turning the meeting over to you for your Public Works Committee hearing.
Okay, thank you. And just before I get started with my meeting, just wanted to note that the reason our Councilwoman Daniels isn't here, she gave me the official word that it's a pleasure to announce that we have a new member of City Council joining the ranks. She had a daughter, Rocio Lou Daniels Chen, last night. Mother and baby are doing well, and so is her partner Z. So we wanted to just first, before we get started, give that quick bit of news to the members of council and our city. So just keep her and the baby and their family and in your thoughts and prayers moving forward. So with that, good news. We are going to move to our work session, our public hearing, with the first item on our agenda being Bill 20 of 2020, an ordinance vacating and striking from the official map of the city of Harrisburg rights of way within the block bounded by the Boyd Street Urban Meadow, North 4th Street, Riley Street, and Logan Street, and within the block bounded by Harris Street, North 4th Street, the Boyd Street Urban Meadow, and the Logan Street, and Logan Street, pursuant to Chapter 3-109 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Harrisburg. So we'll get there, and then is there anyone from the city? I think Tiffany, or will you be beginning the meeting on this?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Majors. Before we begin, I'd like to get an exhibit into the record, and that is what I'm going to mark as Exhibit 1, and that is a true and correct copy of Bill 20 of 2020. Included in that packet is the petition to vacate streets, submitted and signed in accordance with the 3rd class city code. There's the map depicting the streets to be vacated, the plan review sheet containing the comments of the city engineer, the review and comments of the Dauphin County Planning Commission, the Planning Bureau case report for the 300 block of Riley Street, the Planning Bureau case report for the 300 block of Harris Street, the resolution of the Planning Commission for the 300 block of Riley, and the resolution of the Planning Commission for the 300 block of Harris Street. And then before Mr. Knight gives his report, if the court stenographer would swear Mr. Knight, would swear him in.
You please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So the applications before the City Council this evening, as Ms. Baldock noted, involve the vacations of rights of way within 2 adjacent blocks in the Midtown area. The first being the 300 block of Riley Street, bounded by the Boyd Street Urban Meadow, North 4th Street, Riley Street, and Logan Street. And within that block, I believe are all small rights of way known as grocers alleys. So those are very narrow, 4 or 5 foot wide rights of way. And then in the block bounded by Harris Street, North 4th Street, the Boyd Street Urban Meadow, and Logan Street, there's actually both the small Grocers Alley rights of ways that are being vacated, and there's also a stub of a street known as Howard Alley that is being vacated as well as part of this proposal. So the proposals themselves are fairly straightforward. Both of the properties are being used as surface parking lots at the moment. The one to the south, bordering Riley Street, is a paved parking lot that's been used for parking for the Hack campus buildings. And then the block to the north is largely gravel parking lot. I think some of it may be slightly paved. But effectively, both of these are operating as parking lots across both the properties and the rights of way that will be vacated by tonight's, or hopefully vacated by tonight's actions by City Council. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both had pretty straightforward reviews of this proposal. And for both of these, the Planning Bureau and Planning Commission recommended that City Council approve the request with the following conditions, and that if there is water or storm sewer infrastructure managed by Capital Region Water running along or through the right-of-way to be vacated, the applicant will coordinate with the authority to address any outstanding issues related to access or maintenance. And I believe that CRW did indicate that there were some for the block to the south, but I do not know that they had indicated that there were any infrastructure within the block to the north. And then the Planning Bureau and Planning Commission recommended that City Council approve the request for the following reasons. The existing right-of-way is essentially a paper street running across a surface parking lot on site with access restricted to the general public by an access gate to the overall block. And then as such, the vacation will not have any impact on traffic circulation. And the proposed street vacation will permit the subsequent lot consolidation of the properties on the site, thereby allowing eventual development of a mixed-use development to occur without necessitating numerous variances and special exception requests for relief from the development standards in section 7-307.3 of the zoning code. So as noted in the case report and the resolution, the action of vacating these rights of way will allow the blocks to be consolidated, to have all of their properties and the extant right-of-ways consolidated into a single parcel, which will kind of help clean up the city's official map. And it will also allow the eventual development of those sites. And I think the applicants for tonight can probably speak a little bit more to those aspects of the project. And with that, I'll either hand it back to Ms. Baldock or let the applicants introduce themselves.
Sure, and before the applicants introduce themselves, if they wouldn't mind getting sworn in, anyone who plans on speaking, the applicant or on behalf of the applicant, the stenographer would please swear them in as well.
Well, this is Doug Neidick with Greenworks. I am going to introduce the subject for the evening, and then I'll turn things over to Casey Deller, who is our engineer with KCI Engineers, if any of the council members have any questions.
Sure, and if Doug and Casey, if you wouldn't mind getting sworn in by the stenographer.
Absolutely. Yep.
You swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Can Casey share his screen quickly? Is that possible?
Yes.
While that's coming up, let me introduce the project and what we're doing. So I'm with Greenworks Development. Greenworks has been working in the Midtown 3rd and Riley area since 2005. We've made a lot of progress in the area over the last 15 years, but we haven't gotten to where I originally wanted to get when we started the project back in 2005. So the goal here is to create a live, work, play, and learn community in Midtown that's a diverse socioeconomic community. And the next stage of development, I think, is going to take a large step toward that goal that we set out with back in 2005. With the courthouse going up and the courthouse being complete next year, we've got plans to build what we call the 320 Riley project. That's 135 to 150 unit apartments with commercial along Riley Street. We are also working closely. So Dominic Wicker with Washington Place Equities and Casey Deller with KCI Engineers and I are working on that project. With that project, Jeff Knight mentioned that we've also got consolidation of the lot immediately north of the Riley Street lot that we're working on for a future sister project that we'd like to think about doing after the 320 Riley project is successful. We're also working really closely with Kevin Baird, whose name you might know. Kevin is a developer from the Philadelphia area who became very interested in Midtown about a year ago. Kevin is working on a project immediately to the east, or 1 block away to the east of our 320 Riley project. And that's approximately a 475 space garage with approximately 80 residential units and retail and commercial on the first floor. So this is a rendering that's on the screen at this point of what Midtown is shaping up to look like over the next couple of years. This is what I'd consider the 2021 to 2023 development plan. The Campus Square building is shown in the right foreground. The Campus Square building we built in 2008. Thank you. Campus Square building we built in 2008. I tried to build that as the brightest green commercial building in the region. So we've got solar on the roof. We've got geothermal underneath it. We are really trying to push the sustainability envelope while we are doing everything else. The Midtown 2 academic building is across the street, and the Fulton Bank building is on the southeast corner of 3rd and Riley. With the new courthouse going up that's shown in this rendering, really everything, almost everything between the courthouse and Campus Square and 3rd and Riley, Campus Square and the academic building is slated for redevelopment in the not too distant future, starting this year / next year, depending on these projects. So the 320 Riley project is shown on the screen. It's right in the middle of the rendering. Solar on the roof, geothermal, we think, for common areas of the building, kind of a similar sustainability footprint to the Campus Square building. We think that these projects, this project along with Kevin Baird's project, is going to really go a long way toward moving Midtown forward. If we can move to the next slide. Excuse me.
This is the location map, Doug. Is that the one you want?
No, the rendering of the building, if you would, Case.
Oh,
yeah, that's the location. I think everyone's familiar with where we're planning to build. This is a preliminary rendering of what the building will look like. Retail along the Riley Street is in front of you and to the left. 4th Street is to the right and goes away from you. So retail on the Riley Street side of the building, apartments, market rate apartments, generally above with solar on the roof. We think this is a great project as a next step project for the city. And I will turn the technical discussion or any technical details over to Casey.
thanks, Doug. And good evening, council, staff, and the public at the meeting. Jeff's summary gave a very clear and concise summary of the application and our request of council to grant the vacation of the various rights of way and quote unquote paper streets that exist on the 2 properties. Those basically exist at the time that those lots were created in order to provide access to the rears of the property from the internal alleyways, what are commonly referred to as Grocer's Alley, a 4-foot strip to provide space between the individual units. Obviously, since those units are no longer in place, those individual rights of way are no longer needed. And as previously discussed, this application comprising the 2 properties are really the first step in the site entitlement process for the ultimate redevelopment that you're seeing on the screen. I'll pull up the alley vacate exhibit, which shows the two individual properties. It's coming. The first being Riley Street, which is the southern piece. You'll notice that there's approximately 22 individual properties that comprise the 320 Riley Street block. A 4-foot alley that comes in from Logan across the back of what used to be small individual row homes, and a 4-foot alleyway coming in off of Boyd Street. On the northern property, the 300 Harris Street property, as Jeff mentioned in his summary, there's a few more alleyways that come in off of Logan, off of Boyd, and off of Harris at the top, as well as the unopened Howard Alley, Howard Street that exists really just in paper form, may not even legally be an entity, but we wanted to go through the process the proper way to make sure that we are above board with all our requests to vacate. Should you grant these vacations tonight, our next step would be to move forward with our lot consolidation plans, one for each of the block proper, unifying all the individual properties, 22 on the 320 Riley side, I think it's 17 on the 300 Harris side, unifying each of those into one individual block. Really, that sets us up to be more compliant with the city's zoning ordinances, to put one large structure on each property as the renderings depicted. That way, we are not crossing internal property lines. We're not crossing internal rights of way. We have one neat, clean, unified property to build our proposed structures on. Subsequent to lot consolidation, we'll review the zoning ordinances to make sure we're in compliance. And then proceed with the city's permitting process, starting with the land development plan to work through site entitlements and permitting for those properties. I'm happy to go into further detail on these. I don't want to get too far into the weeds unless council has questions or requests specific detail.
Okay, Mr. Neidig, is there anything additional you would like to add before I open it up to members of council to ask any questions that they may have?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so I will start with members of council. If there are any questions, I will start on the dais. I will start with Councilman Allett. Do you have any questions on the plan as being proposed for this, as proposed, excuse me?
I do not have any questions as of right now. Thank you.
Okay. President Williams.
Just one. I'm looking over the bill and I see that there was a question about an owner at 1530 North 4th Street needed to sign a petition to vacate. Did you get that individual request permission to do that?
That Councilman Williams, that property owner is referencing a property, an individual piece of the property owned by Hack, and Greenworks and Hack have negotiated and executed a property transfer agreement in which each of those entities essentially traded parcels. So that document is complete and is being through its final execution processes right now. So yes,
Okay.
ma'am, we have.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Majors, and just want to thank you for utilizing that vacant area there, and certainly will bring revenue to the city of Harrisburg. So I thank you for that.
I guess that's the last thing I could add about the project is that these were, both of these parking lots are lots that our agreement with the city back in 2005 when we started the project was that these were only intended to be temporary lots.
Right.
Until a garage was built is the way that the agreement with the city reads. And that garage is in the planning process now, ready to go up. And we are trying to take these from temporary lot status into tax generating projects for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Neidig. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
All right, Councilman Madsen, any questions?
None for me. I'm pretty familiar with the project. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Bowers, any questions and or comments on the proposal?
Thank you. I don't have any questions relative to the vacation, but I did have a question regarding the number of proposed units. You mentioned the proposed units would be within a range of 135 to 150. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm not sure if you are aware, but currently before City Council, we have an affordable housing legislative package.
Mhm.
Our primary program ordinance addresses 20% of a project as affordable for our residents' sake. We are looking to increase that possibly to roughly 30%. So I just wanted to know if this is something that you would be open to, given the large number of units available within this project.
We are looking at a number of different options on affordable, an affordable component to this overall project now, and our intent on making affordable housing happen as part of the overall project. So we're working on that. I don't have any specific answer there yet, but we are very focused on that and are working on it.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad we share the same common goal. I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Green.
Thank you. I don't have any questions at this time on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I think as Councilwoman Daniels and Council President Williams mentioned, as it pertains to the street vacation, don't see any major concerns from my perspective. We will, as these things go in pieces, right? So first piece is for the street vacation to be moved, and then there will be subsequent plans coming down on on how you actually plan on developing the property. I think those were some of the concerns that I may have, and if we could get a little bit more assurances on maybe some of the affordable housing piece, because this will be a large development project in this area, an area that has seen significant development over the years, courtesy of your company and several others. But one of the common concerns that I think members of council here is, there's a lot of development happening in particular parts of the city, but in terms of the affordability for city residents to be able to take advantage of some of this new development and new housing doesn't always match. I think I've heard, what some of the proposed potential rents are, and I think that is what gives some people some concern. But in terms of the actual street vacation, I see no concerns as long as all the other conditions have been met by Capital Region Water and the city engineer. So if there aren't any further comments from members of City Council, well, I guess one other comment. Have you heard anything from any property owners or residents in the immediate area? Have they expressed any concerns?
We've had a public meeting about the project and have not heard any concerns at all. A lot of support for the project, honestly. We really haven't heard any negatives to speak of.
Okay. So if there aren't any other questions from members of council, I'd like to open it up to public comments as specific to Bill 20. President Williams, I see your great
Yes. Just to go back with what Daniel said, Mr. Neidig, are you going to look at the affordable housing piece and include it in this present project that we're speaking of today with the 135 to 150 units? Are you looking at future projects that will be inclusive with the affordable housing piece that we have?
We're looking to include an affordable housing component as we do this project. And the question
Okay.
is exactly how we do that. So honestly, I'm working with Sanghor Mans at the Harrisburg Housing Authority. He and I are very close, looking at different options. I'm working with an affordable developer. We are looking at a range of different things to try to figure out how best to move Midtown and the rest of the city forward.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Majors.
Okay. Thank you. So if there are any further comments from members of council, we'd like to open it up to public comment. See, moment, are there any members of the public in the chat that may want to raise their hands? I'm just trying to get up. I do see one hand raised up right now. That looks like
Loretta Barbie Dare from Summit Terrace.
okay.
Thank you.
Up and hold on, just for the stenographer, could you spell your name?
Loretta or Summit Terrace? I'll just spell Loretta. Loretta. Last name is Barbie Dare. BARBEE hyphen capital DARE.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dare. You can go ahead with your comment.
And I apologize. It's coming in on two waves. I'm actually calling on behalf of the Summit Terrace Neighborhood Association. And I did have a question, and I didn't have an opportunity to ask it before. And now that I'm speaking, I can't see the map. But I was wondering, please indulge me, Mr. Deller, could you go back to that preliminary, the first tab, and show the concept of the area relative to what I'm looking at now with the abandoned streets behind that building? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm
think so, ma'am. Yes.
I'm trying to minimize my screen again. So
It should be popping up.
where you were. There you go. Okay, so where we're at now on this screen, can you go back to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
tab that says, yeah, and then zone in on that? Because I had a question about the area. It was just a question. I actually think the project itself is incredible. I love what you've done in Midtown. I've taken some classes in the Midtown Hack, so I'm familiar with your work that you do down there. But is this the building here, the 320 Riley project? Is it the area behind to my left that I'm seeing the black and white stripe lines where that's going to be vacated?
The vacation, the rights of way don't show up on this plan. They would be underneath each of these two buildings, if I can describe that in that way. The building in the center of the screen here labeled as 320 Riley, that comprises the whole block. From Logan to Riley, that whole piece. The rights of way in question are small pieces of ground, 4 feet wide, 8 feet wide, that run internal to that block. So if you can picture this building, and I'll flip to the next plan, maybe that'll help illustrate it. So this is the 320 Riley building. And I'll flip back to the vacation exhibit. That will show the entire block. Bear with me, my screen's a little slow with the screen share and the video. So in this document, 4th Street is to the right. Well, this is the 300 block of Harris. It's really the same thing. So 4th Street is right here. Harris is at the top, and Logan is on the left side. That building will take up the entire block here. I'm trying to move my mouse slow, so hopefully it shows on the screen. That's the entire parking lot right now. And these internal rights of way and internal strips of land, for instance, this piece that comes from the greenway into the lot is 4 feet 3 inches wide, and was really used to get beside this house and into the alley in the back
Mhm.
which was 4 feet wide, which previously allowed each of these homes to get into the backside of their properties. Deemed a grocer's alley, so each of those people could make deliveries to their back porch or access the rear of their properties.
Mhm.
Similar, there's a small one coming off of Logan that really just stretched the first property here.
Mhm.
And then an 8-foot wide piece that on the city maps is shown as Howard Alley that comes in from Harris at the north into the center of the property. So they're all relatively small, not very wide pieces of ground. They're all internal to the property, and they all would be underneath what we're showing the proposed buildings to be.
So there's actually going to be a concrete or an impervious surface that's over these abandoned alleys once you're completed with your plan.
Yes, ma'am. For most of the roof area or areas where there's other improvements.
And you're
As part of
and you're working with our water folks, our Capital Region water folks, on what to do with all of this surface area that's now going to be going into these black and white striped areas that will have no place to go.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That'll be part of our subsequent permitting through the land development process. Yes, ma'am.
I got you. All right. Thank you for explaining. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Dare. We have another hand raised. Looks like Kamika Campbell. If you could spell your name for the stenographer and then proceed with your comment. I believe, are you unmuted? Okay.
All right.
Campbell? Okay.
Kimeka Campbell. Is there any other information you'd like me to provide?
No, that's okay for now. You may go ahead with your public comment.
Thank you so much. I wanted to know more about, so I'm looking at the Google Maps and looking at some of the businesses in the area. In particular, there's L&L Beauty Supply, and you may have talked about this a little bit earlier, so please forgive me. If you could go over that again, if you haven't already addressed it. L&L Beauty, Vietnamese Garden, how does this project impact those surrounding businesses in that area?
Well, I think this project positively impacts those businesses and other businesses in the area in a tremendous way, because we're going to bring a new wave of new energy into Midtown that's going to be diverse energy, the way I see it. We really are trying to build the Midtown community as intelligently and as effectively and as diversely as we can. And actually, I just spoke to the owner of the beauty supply shop last couple of days ago. Coincidentally, she had seen me in the area and stopped to introduce herself, which was great. And she's very much in favor of the project and is looking forward to seeing the new residents, the new energy, the new activity in the area. I think this is the kind of development that the Midtown area has really been waiting for the last decade or so. And with the courthouse going up, it really, honestly, it is the trigger for the next phase of development to start to happen, which it is in a big way.
Excellent, excellent. One of the conversations that our residents have been having around rent is how expensive it is currently to rent, relatively, medium-sized to smaller places, 1-bedroom studios in some cases, smaller 2-bedrooms in Midtown already and the surrounding area. How do you foresee this this project either alleviating some of that pressure, or what kind of impact do you think it will have for folks who kind of already live here and who may be looking for housing and anticipating something like this? How do you think this will impact current residents and folks who may be, already kind of suffering under the weight of pretty high rents?
Yep, understand. So what we're trying to do in this project, and I can introduce Dominic Wicker, who's on the call, I believe, from Washington Place Equities in Baltimore, who's my partner in this project. But what we're trying to do here is to manage the financing of the project. You've got to be able to keep the bank happy and do the financing on a project like this while you try to keep rents as affordable as possible. And that is absolutely the exercise that we are engaged in here. We've got some public money that's come into the project. We've got some other advantages that we see here that are going to try to help us keep rents as low as possible. But that is absolutely our challenge, and it's what Washington Place Equities has a track record and a long history of being able to do effectively, to do a quality product, great spaces, efficient spaces with lots of amenities in the building built in at the most affordable rent number that they can put into the project. It is not easy to make these kinds of things happen. Honestly, a 10-year tax abatement on a project like this is a great thing, but taxes in year 11 and beyond are a challenge. There are things that stack up against you when you try to do these kinds of projects in Harrisburg, but we think we can see our way through all that. And we think with new tax revenue generated by projects like this and new activity generated in the city through projects like this, that a lot of those pressures are going to ease over time. So honestly, for me, doing this project in Midtown, I'm from the area. I'm from Steelton originally, doing this project in the area for the last 15 years. And now being in a situation in which I've got a very experienced developer from Baltimore who's partnering with me on this project, while I've got a very experienced developer from Philadelphia who we're working with closely that's doing the garage residential project 2 blocks to the east. Harrisburg's turning the corner. And I think there's lots of good things that are going to happen for every resident of the community as the result of that.
Wow, thank you so much for answering that question. And that concludes my comments for this section.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Campbell. Looks like we have another hand raised, Ms. Rachel Peacock. Rachel Peacock. I don't want to pursue. If we could have you unmuted and then you could spell your name for the stenographer and then proceed with your comment.
It's RACHELEE, and my last name is Peacock, like the bird, PEACOCK, like the bird. My question / public comment is that this buzzword of affordability keeps being thrown around. And so my concern is that if something was truly affordable, right, that means the lowest paying person should be able to, quote unquote, pay for this affordable housing rent. So the current minimum wage for Pennsylvania is $7.25. $7.25 times 40 is $290 times 2 for 2 weeks is $580, and then times that by 2 for a month is $1,160. Taxes will take probably about 30% of that, bringing them back down to somewhere between, if they're working like that 80 hours a week, which folks that make $7.25 currently really aren't. But in this fake scenario that I've created, we'll say they're making about $900. Rent is $900. How is your housing going to be affordable?
Well, yeah, that's a question that's well outside of the scope of a project like this, obviously. But this is part of the reason why we need a $15 minimum wage. That's going to help this a lot. But those are issues that are outside of the scope of a project like this. We can only do the level best we can to make a project like this as affordable as possible. Clearly, we've got some other city issues and societal issues that need to be sorted out. A project like this can't be, I don't believe, affordable for absolutely everyone. And we're working with the city and city council in order to try to do the level best job that we can do to make affordable housing part of this overall project as we move forward, per the kinds of definitions that city council has established.
So you're not making affordable housing for everyone, just for those in the middle class. Is that correct?
Well, we're doing the level best we can to make the whole project as affordable as possible is the honest answer.
Perhaps we should use a different word than affordable, because affordable would include the folks that make $725. Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Okay. Trying to see, so we had those other comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to make a comment? I think those were the hands that I've seen raised in the attendee feature. Are there any other additional? Looks like we do have an additional hand. Well, two additional hands here. The first one I saw listed on here, it's named, I guess, PASA Conference is how it's indicated on here. If we could have you spell your name for the court stenographer. Looks like you're unmuted. Spell your name for the court stenographer and then proceed with your comment.
Thanks, Councilperson Majors. I'm Christina Kostelecki, that's Christina. Last name is Kostelecki, Kostelecky. So I just kind of wanted to quickly go back on the idea of impermeable surfaces and circle that back to affordable housing. We know that we are in a major floodplain area and that the folks most impacted by that are the folks that have the least control over it. So I really encourage, before we start, planning the buildings, thinking about those impermeable surfaces. It wasn't that long ago that at a city council meeting, we specifically heard council folks talking about, basically like tax credits for businesses that increase their permeable surfaces. And I think that really needs to be a fundamental focus here as well. If this is going to be affordable housing, or if it's going to be less expensive than the highest rates, I think we need to be thinking about how we can implement every single way possible to make sure that this area isn't prone to flooding and that it contributes positively to the environmental impact of the area.
I appreciate your question. We've got the two answers to your question. One is that we've been working for the last couple of years, actually, very closely with Capital Region Water to plan the stormwater management for this area because we've got so much development that's slated to happen as a next step. So we're very, very close with Capital Region Water and doing a comprehensive design with them as we move forward. The other answer to your question is that what we call the urban meadow, that's the pedestrian walkway that runs between these two blocks that we're planning to build on. Previously, back in 2005, 2006, was a section of Boyd Street. I worked closely with Steve Reed at the time to decommission that street away from a vehicular street toward a pedestrian walkway. It's a walkway that initially extended between the two HAC buildings. The city is working with us at this point to extend that walkway over to 6th Street so that it would connect 3rd Street over to 6th Street and the courthouse, which I think it would be a great thing. That walkway we specifically designed and had built to be an urban runoff filtration system. So it's got the mechanisms in place to do very effective stormwater management. And in the development of these two projects, really the three projects, including the garage project that Kevin Baird's planning to do, a block to the east of us, we're leaning on that urban meadow, that filtration system, that walkway that's pervious to help us do stormwater management. But we're working with Capital Region Water to manage the rest of stormwater in the whole Midtown area as we develop over the next couple of years.
Thank you. Is there evidence to point to the fact that that walkway is enough of an impervious surface to combat the impervious surfaces that are being added?
It's not enough. It gets us a long way there, but it's not enough. So we're working with Capital Region Water on park areas in the Midtown area and on other things that are going to be additional stormwater management techniques.
Thank you.
If I would just like to add two things with respect to those questions. One, both of these sites are effectively impervious already, almost entirely impervious. The one on the south is a paved parking lot, and the one to the north is compacted gravel. I think CRW considers that to be impervious for purposes of calculations of stormwater runoff. So the projects may like nibble at a little bit of the very edge of the site, but there probably will be very little extra increase in runoff. And what there is may be able to be addressed by incorporating like detention or retention facilities within the new development. And to your point about the floodplains, I would note that neither of these sites is in the 100-year floodplain or even the 500-year floodplain. So I don't think that the development will lead to additional localized flooding in this area. It's certainly something that we should be making sure that all of our projects are contributing to better and greener stormwater management. But just if there's concerns about the new development actually increasing runoff, it's unlikely that that would happen because of the existing conditions out there on the ground.
And Jeff, just to that point, again, what we're looking at currently is just the street vacation. We don't have the full land development plan yet and site development plan, which when we do look at those, some of the factors that go into that is if there is any plan for any additional pervious surface to be included into that full project. I know the rendering looked like it had some open space in the middle of the property. I don't know if there was any plans for additional green space there. And to your point, we do have the Green Meadow, the Urban Meadow extension that we're looking to finish from 4th Street all the way up to 6th Street there. And there is some current green, I guess there are some current pervious surfaces surrounding the current parking lot. So again, I think we have a few steps to still go through on that process, but these are all great questions that we're receiving from the public on the project. I guess we have an additional hand here. We have Lavette Henderson. If we could have them unmuted, and you could spell your name for the stenographer and then proceed with your comment.
Hi, my name is L.A.V. as in Victor E.T. Henderson with the H, Henderson. And I just wanted to chime in on Rachel Peacock's question or give some input. I did come in late. I just want to know, are you guys working because of the minimum wage not increasing? Are you working with state and federal officials to possibly look at the option of bringing low income projects for those people who are not at that income level needed to be able to afford the project that you're looking to build?
Yep, we are working on exactly that right now.
Okay, can you give us a little bit more details?
Not yet. We're looking at a number of options, working closely with Senghor Mans at Harrisburg Housing Authority on all those options, really, trying to work out the level best approach to building the next steps of this community as intelligently as we can, that will incorporate as much affordable as possible. And honestly, some of the options we're looking at are options that would allow us to bring an affordable developer from the central Pennsylvania area into Harrisburg for the first time, that is interested in preliminary conversations with them and doing serial projects, which could be a number of affordable steps, one after the other, that would be outside of the bounds of just the specific 320 Riley project or its sister project, but help to move affordable housing, quality affordable housing forward serially in partnership with what we're doing, but on its own independently as well, to try to help build Midtown as well as we possibly can.
It will almost have to happen simultaneously. or it's going to push those who are already at a disadvantage out of their community?
Yep. Per Councilman Williams' question of a while ago, we are looking to start the affordable component of the project, whatever that turns out to be, looking to start that concurrent with the project itself, with the 320 Riley project itself. It's not a next phase. It is concurrent with the project.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And to that point, Mr. Neidig, so that sounds to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you're that some of the affordable housing components you're looking at are in partnership with the Harrisburg Housing Authority, but they'll be apart from the 320 Riley Street project. At one of our last work sessions, we had the Harrisburg Housing Authority in talking about some of the development and that they're considering on their property where Jackson Lick occurred is. So are you referring to that?
No, not
okay.
referring to that, referring to additional things that are outside of HHA's current game plan.
Okay, but not in consult. Is that a part of the 320 project or not? That is separate.
I love the work that Senghor's doing over there. I love the work he did on Jackson Lake. I love the work that he's planning to do on the parking lot in front. But anything else we would do here would be very Midtown specific within a block or two of what we're looking at now. Okay, so it would still be, you're still looking in that, I guess, that area between Riley and maybe up to maybe Hamilton Street? Exactly. Okay. Exactly. Yep. Okay, so additional to the area, but not necessarily the 320 project. And I guess in terms of affordable, since a lot of since we've opened up the conversation to that as we've been going through this, and I guess sitting here, I had an opportunity to look at some of the other projects and some previous work that I did when I was looking at the bill, some of the other projects that the partner, I guess Washington Place Equities has throughout, in their portfolio. So are you looking at comparable rents to there or comparable rents to our MSA for Harrisburg? We're going to try to achieve comparable rents to the MSA. Well, we're going to try to achieve comparable rents, and I there's a lot of debate back and forth about exactly what affordable means at this point. Right. We are working with an affordable developer and with Senghor, and we want to work with City Council on establishing all of those ground rules and tying them together as effectively as we can so we can move forward. And it is still a conversation. It's still a work in progress for us. Okay. And then I guess this is still a little premature, but have you had any conversations with any to ensure that there's participation in terms of MBE and WBEs on the projects that you're proposing? Absolutely. We're addressing that right up front on the 320 Riley project, as well as on the garage and residential project that Kevin Baird, the Philadelphia developer, is looking to do a block from us to the east. We are very focused on affordable and on MBE from the get-go of the project here. Okay. Okay. And again, I guess, like I said, I know we're focused right now on the street vacation, but these are all things that are, I guess, that are relevant to the conversation that we've been having now. So if there aren't any additional public comments, I want to ensure that everyone has had an opportunity.
I'll have one, just one more public comment, and that's on the Jackson Licks building. You guys did rehabilitate one, and the other one is left undone. But not only that, that building is only affordable for people who are 65 and older or disabled, not even disabled, 65 and older. So I just would like to know, what do you guys plan to do for anyone younger? Because right now, there's not much affordable housing uptown, midtown area for people who are anything other than veterans or 65 and older.
Well, I want to be clear that the Jackson Lick project and the other proposed project over that way are not Greenworks. That's the Harrisburg Housing Authority itself that has done those projects. So I really can't answer that question for the authority. That's Senghor Mans and his group who are.
Well, I mean, but you did say that you're working in conjunction with state, local, and federal officials. So that is governed by the state, or so you can comment on Jackson Licks as far as it being the only project affordable, but it's under the state. So as far as the city, are you or are you not working with state and federal officials to bring affordable housing to those who make $725 and below?
We're working coordinating our project specifically with Senghor Mans, with the city, with the Harrisburg Housing Authority, while we're working on, the definition of affordability and percentages and the whole mix. But we are not the developer at Jackson Lick or at the new proposed development in the parking lot in front of Jackson Lick.
Right. And Ms. Henderson, and I'll just note, and one of my fellow members of council can correct me if I'm wrong, the potential project for the Harrisburg Housing Authority is still in the early phases. They did discuss at our last meeting that they were looking at it to include some mixed use, which is a little bit different than what's currently offered at the Jackson Lick Towers, which we do know is, affordable housing, but has a requirement that it's mostly is for seniors. So they did mention that as a part of that conversation on the potential new properties, but we still need to get information from them. So that's a little bit different than what Mr. Neidick is discussing as we're talking about his project and that street vacation. And if there are there any additional comments from any members of council now that we've heard from the public? Okay, Mr. Madsen.
No, I was just going to say, just to give some context to everybody, that I know this not necessarily has to do with the street vacation that we're discussing, but part of the issue that we're having with affordable housing as a crisis is that HUD has been underfunded since the 80s. And HUD is largely what's going to sponsor a lot of these types of projects. Also, HUD hasn't really updated what I would say to modern poverty. So there's a lot of folks that are living paycheck to paycheck that are working 2-3 jobs that are still by most people's general understanding in poverty, but not necessarily by HUD's guidelines. So a lot of this stuff has to happen. And it's not just Harrisburg, it's a national problem, and most urban centers are faced with it. Now, what council has been doing through our work through the Pennsylvania Municipal League and National League of Cities has been going to conferences, working with, there are legislative committees that council members can serve on. I've served on one for a while to advocate for updated HUD regulations and more funding to HUD so that way we can expand local projects to help the people that are struggling right now. But absence of that, because of the city's debt, it's going to be very hard for us to proactively do a lot of things around housing until we fix our debt. And then 2, HUD kicks in more dollars, or excuse me, the federal government kicks into more dollars so the Harrisburg Housing Authority can do more expansive projects and increase that net of providing housing to constituents. Sorry, I just had to add that.
No, absolutely. And, and you couple that with, again, as we're working with Chair Bowers on the affordable housing piece, what is defined as affordable, and how our MSA in terms of the area where people can draw some of the comparable rents is much larger than just the city of Harrisburg. So what is defined as Harrisburg by the federal government when they're looking at some of these what is deemed quote unquote affordable is a region that is our region, right? So it stretches all the way from Harrisburg down to Carlisle and almost in a 360-degree area around there, right? So people do pull. So, as we noted, as we're working on the comprehensive plan, that the city the median income for city residents is much lower than our county and much lower than the region. But if they pull their statistics to create our statistical area to include that whole region, that's how we get some of these higher rents for city residents. So trying to ensure we have a good definition of what is deemed affordable is something that we're also working on as well. Chair Bowers.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify some of HUD's definitions for affordable housing. So 30% is like extremely low, 50% would be very low, and then 80% is what we know as low income. So it seems to me that in this project may address a moderate income level. I don't know if some of our attendees were on, but or are even aware that we, City Council, is addressing affordable housing. And it is our hope to capture both low and moderate income residents in the program that we have set forth through a legislative package. It's an affordable housing legislative package establishing an affordable housing program with both incentives for developers and residents. The next piece offers an amendment to the city's zoning code relative to what an affordable housing tool known as bonus density. The next piece offers street vacation, as we're talking about right now, as a tool for affordable housing. And the final piece utilizes the LRTA for affordable housing. So know that we are working to address affordable housing for everyone, all residents in the city. And it is our hope through the affordable housing program that we will be able to capture as many residents as possible. So I just wanted to clarify that. I know that it is off topic from our discussion right now, but I did feel I needed to chime in.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Bowers, for that. You can speak more eloquently about the proposal than I can. I was just trying to hit some of the high points. Looks like there may be there's an additional hand raised now. Rachel Peacock, is this a second hand or is this from the first time? I just want to make sure we're including you if you have an additional comment.
Well, since we're on the topic of affordable housing, I had a quick question for City Council, if that's okay.
Okay.
So 2 minutes ago, Dave just said that the city doesn't have the funds for affordable housing right now because they get part of it from, I believe, the city and federal, as well as HUB, that initiative. Yet the City Council increased their budget for the police by 1.3 million. I just don't understand how you folks can claim that you care, right? I appreciate Danielle answering my question, or Councilman Bowers answering my question and letting me know, like, hey, technically, yeah, it doesn't, help the lower residents, but there is a plan. But right now, your actions and what was just said is not lining up. So that's my question. Like, how can you claim you care about that residents, but you're not building affordable housing? Like, that's not a top priority, for the folks that don't make these middle moderate incomes.
I will turn to Chair Bowers, who wants to answer the question.
Thank you for that question. Again, this project is the primary focus right now for this public hearing. But in addressing what Councilman Madsen was speaking about and your budget question, the budget for the Building and Housing Department within the city, it is primarily all of the programs that are offered through the department are federally funded. So we can't easily move funds from our police budget to address housing because we have to meet the federal benchmarks required by HUD to ensure that those programs remain consistent and produce the benchmarks that are needed to continue to receive the federal funding. So I hope that answered your question, but know that it's not a simple fix for us to utilize funds from our policing department or really anywhere else within the building and housing department.
Thank you for that. So if there are additional questions pursuant to Bill 20, we'll take those now. As we can follow up with, we could have some additional follow-up with Rachel Peacock and anyone else who wants to have discussions on the affordable housing piece, but just want to be able to wrap up and conclude Bill 20. So I don't see any additional comments. I'll turn it over to Tiffany. Are there any additional exhibits that need to be entered into prior to us concluding the public hearing on Bill 20?
No, I have nothing further to get into the record. So if you want to conclude the hearing, feel free to.
Okay, so we will conclude the hearing on Bill 20, and I will, prior to moving it to a legislative session, I just want to have some quick follow-up with Mr. Knight on a couple questions that I have, and then we can look to move it. Actually, no, we'll move it to our next, to put on the agenda for our next session, pursuant to some of the questions that I just want to ensure get cleared up through Mr. Knight. All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
So
Major.
I will conclude, that concludes the public hearing, and I will turn it back over to President Williams so we can go to the work session.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. And just as a follow-up, if anyone else has any additional questions, please feel free to email Mr. Majors or Ms. Bowers or our city clerk. I now will have a motion to adjourn, please. We have to adjourn the public hearing. Have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
And may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. The public hearing for Public Works Committee is now adjourned. Thank you, Shannon.
Yes, thank you to the stenographer. Thank you so much.
We now will move on to Harrisburg City Council's work session. And I now will start with Mr. Majors again and turn it over to the Public Works Committee.
All right, thank you, President Williams. I'd like to start. We have 3 resolutions in the committee today. We're going to start with Resolution 8 of 2021, which is a resolution for the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Wallace Montgomery and Associates to provide engineering services for the Capital Gateway project. Let's see here. I think I will turn it over to Wayne first for an overview, and then if there's anyone from Wallace Montgomery that wants to comment. So Wayne, take it away.
Thank you, Chairman Majors, City Council members. So this project, you'll recall, was a grant application that the city had submitted to fund construction of the project mid 2020 during, it was done during the pandemic, because I remember presenting on Zoom the grant resolution that was passed, and the city did receive $762,940 to fund the construction of the project. That's federal transportation dollars. That's what they call the RTP, Regional Transportation Plan. As part of that grant application, the city committed to matching funds. One would be to pay the design fee directly, and secondly, to pay construction inspection, construction management services directly. So the $149,768, that was an estimate that was given to us by Wallace Montgomery. Wallace Montgomery completed the concept plan for this project during the 2nd Street project and the associated Forester Street retiming that was done during the 2nd Street traffic study. That was a Green Light Go project, if you'll recall. But one of the things that was noted, I think, in the grant application and noted during the Second Street study is some of these streets are so wide, Forester Street in particular, and the crossings so long that, when pedestrians, press the button, it slows traffic. So this is probably one of the rare projects where we actually improve both traffic and pedestrian accommodations and safety, right? It seems to be one of those projects that addresses all three for the good. And I won't go into the merits of the project, but Wallace Montgomery has a lot of the information at hand because they've done that other project. So they did the traffic signals modeling, so they have the synchro reports. They're comfortable with working them because they created them. The CAD files, the drawing files, and then some of the survey in and around the Second Street tie-in has already been completed. But I am joined by the project manager, Rob Hudson, who can answer specific questions about the scope of work and any other questions council may have.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Hudson, did you have anything you wanted to add before I turn it over to members of council?
No, just that this is another of a series of projects that we've worked on with the city for pedestrian bicycle safety throughout the city. Like Wayne said, it ties into the work that was previously done and is going to be done on Second Street and things like that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions they may have.
Okay, thank you. I will start on, I guess I'll try to go in reverse order on the dais if there's any questions. So I will start with Councilwoman Green. Any questions on this?
Thank you, Councilman Majors. I don't have many questions. One, I was just looking at the scope of work provided by Wallace Montgomery. It looks like they're planning on having some public engagement up to 4 meetings that their engineers would attend. And then they will be receiving some feedback, but I don't see where the feedback will be incorporated and if they would revisit public engagement after the original plans are created.
Yeah, the public engagement will be multiple. We'll do our preliminary design or concept design, further refine that, have a public meeting, get input on it, and then take public comments and incorporate them into the subsequent phases of design.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question that I had.
Can I add just a little tidbit to that? Wallace Montgomery, under a contract, created the Vision Zero website that we use, visionzerohpg.org or .com. Both work. And they were supposed to turn it over to the city, but because of the city's low manpower with maintaining websites and trying to recreate our own website, Wallace Montgomery is currently updating and monitoring and basically running our website on their own overhead. And so that website's been a very useful tool in other projects for public outreach, especially in the pandemic. So I do want to, tip my hat to that kind gesture of maintaining that website for the time being until some of these projects are tied up and we have capacity to take that website back over and incorporate it into our city's website in the new rollout.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Bowers, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilman Madsen, any questions on Resolution 8?
No questions for me, thanks.
All right. President Williams?
Yes. Thank you for Wallace Montgomery having a website to inform our residents, but also public engagement on a personal level is also well too. I do want to ask, what is the bulb out?
It's just an extension into the roadway that it narrows up the roadway, shortens up the pedestrian crossing. It can be a paved surface, it can be green, have some landscaping in it, but it basically it takes the area that if the road has a parking lane in it
Sure.
on either side, it just extends the curb out to the edge of the parking lane. The road edge itself doesn't the travel lane doesn't get any narrower or anything like that, but we're just eliminating the parking lane and literally bumping the curb line out, 8 feet, whatever the parking lane width is.
Okay.
So at Forester and Commonwealth, there was
Yeah,
a
so
project.
that's at Foster and Commonwealth, but does that eliminate the 3 lanes, or are you shortening the 3 lanes that goes in that vicinity, or what? Because is this something like the bump outs that you have on 3rd Street? You incorporated on 3rd Street?
So I guess I can answer that, President Williams. The proposed bump outs would be more to scale, similar to the current ones at Forester and Commonwealth, Forester and 6th, because of that's the same corridor.
Okay.
We're only focused on this project on Forester from front to 2nd, and the bump outs. It would be a road diet.
Okay.
Because there's only 2 lanes going eastbound from 3rd. I'm sorry, westbound from 3rd.
Right.
And then there are 4 lanes headed westbound. One of those lanes will be eliminated with the 2nd Street project because you're going to lose a receiving lane when 2nd Street goes 2-way. So that lane will, instead of being paint, which is what when 2nd Street is completed, it'll be paint. Taking away that extra left turn lane. This project would make it like a refuge area for pedestrians.
Oh, okay. Okay. For safety. Okay.
Yes.
So what initiatives are you going to implement to maybe do an upgrade to your signals? So will they be on a shorter timer basis, or what?
So all the signals on the Forester Street corridor have already been upgraded. They all have fiber. We bring them all back to City Hall where we can monitor the cameras. All of them have, real-time video detection. So they have all the bells and whistles as far as performance. One of the interesting things that the 2nd Street traffic study revealed. Now this is a study. This is a model. Real life observations will tell the true story, but the traffic flows on Forester Street because of the redistribution of traffic will be better on the state routes, right? We know that 2nd Street's going to move a little bit slower. 3rd Street will probably move a little bit slower. Perhaps 6th, 7th will move a little bit slower in the PM leaving the city. But the models, and it's a high level model. It's not micro modeling, but the model does show that flows on state routes at those signals will improve. And some of that work is as a result of the work we had already done with the previous project on the Forester Street corridor. But if there's a specific question, I know it took us a while to iron out the kinks on Forester Street. But I think we're in a good place with that now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Allett, do you have any questions and/or comments?
Yeah, just a quick question. Because I know this is part of like ongoing projects between like 2nd Street, the 7th Street corridor and things like that. What is the length of time for this project from start to finish and impact? Particularly, I'm most concerned about impact in this area because of the convergence of multiple entries into the city, commuters and things like that. But is there a sense of how long this will actually take from start to finish and what the impact to people both driving and walking around would be? And for how long?
So the good thing about this project is that it's federal transportation dollars, so it's going to get delivered through a what we call a local sponsor. So PennDOT, and I know they're on the line, and if maybe they can correct me if I say anything improper, but all their capacity and expertise will be at the table. Their bargaining power and in dealing with contractors. Like if the city has an unfortunate event with a contractor and we don't allow them to work in the city again, they lose the potential for a couple $1 million a year in transportation funding. If if they do something wrong and are disbarred by the Commonwealth, well, then they're essentially out of business, right? So we've had a lot of luck, and PennDOT has the expertise in knowing that, how long something should take and what can be done to not interfere with traffic and commuter traffic. So, I can't say. I mean, we haven't even started preliminary engineering. I would, guess that this would be a 1-year construction project, 6 months, during the prime construction season would be, when it would occur. It won't happen in 2021. That we know. We're not even through preliminary engineering. So, I'm comfortable that we can address any traffic and commuter concerns, before the project is as part of what we call the maintenance and protection of traffic plan, which is, part of what Wallace Montgomery is going to work on when we meet with our PennDOT project manager and all the stakeholders.
And that was going to be my follow-up question too. We've seen in years past when there's multiple projects going on in different capacity, how it literally causes a nightmare to get in and around in the downtown area. I'm very concerned with the amount of the scope of not just the street projects we have, the construction projects we have, then go into whatever, UGI or projects happening, that we're doing our best to coordinate this, because we can just create a big hardship, not just on driving coming up, but pedestrians and everyone trying to navigate the space, particularly between the neighborhoods and downtown and throughout. So I guess my just word of caution, or just my word of hope, is that the coordination of these projects can be done so with, I know it's not going to be, there's going to be interruption, but with minimal interruption and ability to kind of still keep some flow going on. I know, years ago when I was working at the university, there was construction projects that literally limited our ability to get into the parking garage for work, because there was not a coordination between the projects that were going on, or at least a good communication back and forth. So knowing the size and scope that we have going on, I'm just hoping that we can try to plan as best we can to coordinate exactly how these things are going to happen while these projects are going on.
Yeah, point taken.
Yeah,
Thanks.
certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, I guess, any additional questions from any of my colleagues on Resolution 8?
They're going to be a roundabout. They're in that area.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the only additional question I have, I guess, should this go through, the timing of the public engagement and how wide are we looking to do, right? So what's that going to look like? Are we, I know we always do the adjacent property owners, but in terms of public engagement, since it is a very high, highly trafficked area, are we looking to, just do it in that area, or, how are we going to work with, the state, since we do have a lot of Commonwealth employees that not only, drive there, but are pedestrians walking across?
So because federal funding is involved, we will have to do the Section 106 public outreach. So we'll do at least that minimum requirement, which will involve, quite a bit of connections and to stakeholders and whatnot, including the Commonwealth. But we've had some success. In fact, there's the next resolution. If you'd like, we can go over the public outreach component. And we've done some interesting things with, with the pandemic, and we did a combination of public meetings, wearing masks, pop-up type events. And then we also did virtual, narrated PowerPoint slide that would take someone that visited our Vision Zero website, walk them through the project, with a audio narration of the proposed work, and then followed by questions and polls and comment things, and it was all done electronically. Now I know everybody's not, on the internet, but we did that in conjunction, like I said, with the public outreach. So I would envision a combination of the two, like that seems to be very successful. We actually got a lot of good feedback.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just encourage us, as we've heard from some of the other meetings that we've been having, maybe to see if there are some additional stakeholder groups we could even engage, like the Centers for Independent Living, and a few others, since that is a very highly trafficked area, and we do as much outreach as possible to get as much public engagement as possible. So seeing no further questions on Resolution 8, I'd ask that we move Resolution 8 to our next legislative agenda. Next, we'll move to Resolution 9 of 2021, a resolution ratifying Amendment 1 and authorizing the City of Harrisburg to enter into Amendments 2 and 3 of its professional services agreement with Kimberly Horn and Associates for the purpose of providing east-west multimodal connection, Phase 1 engineering services. So we have someone from Kimberly Horn on the line as well, but first I'll turn it over to Wayne to give a brief overview.
Thank you, Chairman Majors. This is an actual supplement. Kimberly Horn was one of 14 firms that responded to proposals for the East-West Connection Phase 1 project, which is partially funded by DCED multimodal grant. These corridors that are part of this project include Walnut Street corridor downtown and also Chestnut Street corridor downtown. Their scope of work, they were the best value, most highly qualified firm based on the selection committee's criteria for this particular project, and were selected and retained at a cost of $165,000. Now that $165,000 took a lot of assumptions, when that was negotiated, because we hadn't done preliminary engineering, we hadn't completed any environmental clearances, and that was an all-in sort of proposal based on all those assumptions. During the course of the project and all the various public outreach and stakeholder outreach we had, there were some recommended changes to the original design. Some of those include a raised intersection at Walnut and Second that sort of mimics the one that was placed on Market and Dewberry. It's not, completely raised to the sidewalk level, but it's not a complete 8-inch rise, but so that design. And then anytime you do touch signals in the city of Harrisburg, we have coordinated signal patterns. And so our assumption of which signals would be impacted was a little on the light side. So there's additional work at Front Street, Front and Walnut. And then also one of the stakeholders mentioned that we have the potential of losing some on-street parking in the project, which is never a good thing in a downtown situation. So we added the Dewberry Loop, and we're looking at accommodating angled parking on the Dewberry Loop, just south of Chestnut. So we added an additional signing and pavement marking plans to the project. So all that said, on page 14 of on page 43 of the proposal is a side-by-side comparison of amendments 2 and 3, and this basically the costs associated with the scope change. So in total, we have $84,000, which is an all-in. There are also some costs in there post-construction awards. So during construction, we added some funds to that to get us through the construction phase of the project. So $84,000 increase in costs of the project based on the scope changes. And I am joined by Matt Shinton with Kimberly Horn, project manager.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Do you have anything to add before I open it up to comments from my colleagues?
I do not, but it's nice to see everybody again. Thank you.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you. I will start with questions with Vice President Allett. Do you have any questions on Resolution 9?
I don't at this time, but I might raise my hand after we go through. I was just looking at the proposed changes to it, so just reviewing that right now.
Okay. Thank you. President Williams, any questions?
No, I have none. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Madsen, any questions?
No questions for me, thanks.
All right. Councilwoman Bowers, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. And Councilwoman Green, any questions on Resolution 9?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just going through again, you mentioned briefly some of the community outreach, and it says that it's still in progress. Could you talk a little bit more about where that currently stands? And I'm trying to get my sound adjusted properly.
So, I mean, we have some utility coordination work to do. There's a lot of utilities, particularly on the Walnut Street corridor, but STEAM, UGI, CRW. So we do have that coordination that has to happen. There's the Penn National Garage that is right on Walnut Street that we're doing some coordination with, and also the bank, is it First National at Second and Walnut, which I had a phone call today about tying in. They're actually doing some work along the sidewalk and facade of the bank. So we're doing some coordination work with them, but our preliminary engineering is pretty close to being completed. Once that's completed, we will have, the final concepts will be what we based our final design off of. So, Matt, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, but other than updating the public on any minor changes, and obviously coordinating with all the adjacent property owners, which will be ongoing through the end of construction for that matter. I don't know that we have any other events planned.
Okay, and then hold on, I'm looking. I just want to make sure I have the right section. Okay, yeah, on the National Penn garage driveway, there's a note here that there may be a concern with meeting some of the ADA requirements. Is there a concern that we won't be able to address those? Because it says if ADA requirements can't be met, then a TIF form will need to be prepared. So there are concerns that we may not be able to address those in that area.
I mean, I can take that if you want.
Please. Yep.
Sure. We're going to be able to meet ADA requirements. There's sort of a caveat in PennDOT's prescriptive requirements that say that if there's certain design criteria that exceed thresholds, there's a technically infeasible form, and it's typically limited to areas such as the city of Harrisburg, where we've got a lot of constraints that we're trying to fit everything in between. So it would be a minor issue there, but it would just more of a documentation aspect of the design project.
So technically infeasible forms still means you build it to the extent feasible. So there's things like, I think there's actually a PP&L electric vault
Yes.
that would cost 10% of the project cost if we were to try to relocate that. So we would still, instead of maybe a 2% crossover at 2.5 or 8 instead of 8.33% upslope, we're at 8.45. So minor, you still have to build it to the extent feasible.
All right, thank you. Okay, and then I said it doesn't look like the contract is okay. All right, perfect. Are there any additional questions or comments from any members on Resolution 9? All right. Seeing none, hearing none, we ask that Resolution 9 be placed on the agenda for a vote at our next legislative session. Thank you. And then lastly, we are going to go to Resolution 10. If you just give me one moment, excuse me, our next resolution, sorry, not resolution 10, it's resolution 14 of 2021, a resolution authorizing the city of Harrisburg to award funding in an amount not to exceed $10,000 to the Pennsylvania Environmental Resources Consortium to co-sponsor the Pennsylvania Environmental Justice Symposium. And I see we have Chris here on the line. I think we're going to be turning it over to you. If you can give a brief explanation, greatly appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Councilman Majors. Yeah, so the Office of Environmental Justice with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection is working with PA Green Colleges through their Environmental Justice Advisory Board to put on an Environmental Justice Symposium, a virtual event on April 6th for the state of Pennsylvania. And the goal of the symposium is to provide an opportunity for diverse environmental justice stakeholders in Pennsylvania to learn about and actively participate in EJ practice and policy in a way that leads to lasting regional coalitions. They're looking to establish long-term environmental justice hubs throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Harrisburg and the central Pennsylvania region would be one of those hubs, working through Harrisburg University and Dickinson College. And so the objectives are to try to help community members identify environmental justice issues and barriers in their own communities, to bring in residents, organizations, institutions, businesses that are working on those types of issues and build capacity between them, and to, as I mentioned, try to establish long-term working relationships so that people can try to share best practices and address those issues in their own communities going forward. So the event on April 6th is meant to be sort of a kickoff event that will be continued in time. They're supposed to do a follow-up in October. The Environmental Advisory Council was presented this by the EJAB board from DEP and supported it, as well as do I. And we were looking to, the Harrisburg University is hosting the event, and we were looking to try and sponsor it.
Okay, thank you. Said I had an opportunity to talk with a few of the folks related to this, and I think it's a worthwhile endeavor for the city to make sure that our participation is noted in here and to sponsor, so we can work to educate our community more on a lot of the issues that are facing our city. So I will open it up to questions to any members of council. Vice President Allen, any questions?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay, President Williams.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hi, good.
And I certainly agree. This is certainly a great opportunity to be involved in such a great symposium. But when I look at this letter, and it indicates that we have put $10,000 in the budget for the PRC. And I'm looking at the budget, and it does not have the $10,000 in it. So I want to know, where was that placed in host fee? Because I see supplies.
Sure.
At $10,000, but I'm looking at botanical and I'm looking at services, and there's nothing in there for $10,000.
No, it wasn't there. It was within the line of the grants to local units. I believe that was a total of $134,000, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I can try to bring it up.
Oh, I have the budget in front of me. I'm looking now.
Okay.
Okay. I still don't see it specified in that. I just was concerned that, we did not have the money in there to just, you take it out of that particular funding.
Well, it was specified. So the 100, again, I don't have it in front of me. I can try to bring it up, but the
Okay.
100 and I believe $34,000 on the line for the grants to local
Right.
units.
I'm looking at that. It's
Sure. Was the
462,000. Yes, I am. I see
Yeah.
that.
Was the $124,000 for the Environmental Teen Corps,
Right.
and then the other 10,000 was intended for the Environmental Justice Symposium.
I see the 125 for the Team Corps, but then I only see, it's 134, but I see only $9,000 going to that. So that's why I questioned that. I was wondering if it was in another line item.
No, well, the what we had discussed at the EAC and put forward was 124,000 for the Environmental Teen Corps and 10,000 for
the symposium.
Well, I'm just looking at it now, and it's correct. I had the 2021. It says 125, and then the total amount is 134. So that's why I was concerned about where the money was coming from. I only see the 10,000 under miscellaneous supplies, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to be exposed to that. You know, I understand that when I talked to Rafrika that this symposium was going to give us a lot of information on the environmental aspect of what we're doing here under the host fund. But I just was concerned that I didn't see the 10,000 put in as PERC under the $134,000. That's all, under the budget.
Well, I wasn't aware that it was specifically at the time when we were doing the budget.
No, I'm looking at it. It's broken down, but I still don't see it as PERC. I see the
Well, that's what I'm saying. I wasn't aware that it was specifically going to the PERC at that time. I knew that it was going to the Office of Environmental Justice with DEP is working with PA Green Colleges, and PERC is under the PA Green Colleges.
It is. I see that, but I don't see it broken down in that category. But that's okay. That's fine. Thank you. Okay. I just had to question that. I'm looking at the budget, and I just had to question that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Madsen.
No questions for me. Thanks. Glad we're supporting this.
All right. Councilwoman Bowers, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. It seems like a worthwhile venture, and I'm hopeful that the city will be able to gain useful information to continue the great work of the EAC.
All right, thank you. And Councilwoman Gray, do you have any questions and or comments?
No, I don't have any questions, and I just echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I look forward to this project and us taking, being an active partner in this. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Chris, I guess I guess we'll just work with you on working to ensure that we promote and advertise this. Should this resolution be approved?
Sure. If I can just mention one thing about that. So the Harrisburg team, we actually are working to try to set up a meeting with Moman, the communications manager, this week about putting messaging out for not only the symposium, but also the ongoing work with the climate action plan for the Harrisburg University team.
Okay, great. Yeah, so look forward to being able to work with you to promote that so we can get as much engagement from our community as possible. So seeing no further questions on Resolution 14, I'd ask that we move Resolution 14 of 2021 to a vote at our next legislative session. With that concludes the work session for the Public Works Committee. I'll turn it back over to President Williams, and I just want to note that I will have to step away from. I have a commitment that I need to try to take care of here very shortly. And again, I just want to note, because I don't know, we may have some additional folks that join the call and other city folks. We want to, our fellow councilwoman, councilperson, Shemaine Daniels, welcomed into the world her daughter, little Miss Rocio Lou Daniels Chen, mother and child and partner are all doing well. So just want to send them all the well wishes in the world. And I will turn it back over to you, President Williams, and my apologies for having to step away.
That's okay, Mr. Majors. Thank you very much. We will now move on to Community and Economic Development Committee. Mr. Madsen, I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you, President Williams.
You're welcome.
First resolution in the Community and Economic Development Committee, it will be, bear with me, I clicked that on my page, Resolution 16 of 2021. Mr. Petrosky, could we read the resolution into the minutes?
Yes, Resolution 16 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final lot consolidation, subdivision, and land development plan to consolidate and re-subdivide the parcels comprising project site into 3 parcels and to construct 3 single-family residential townhomes located at 1605 through 1609 Swedera Street.
Okay, is there someone from the administration here to present the plan?
Yes, Councilman Madsen.
Okay, Mr. Knight, floor is yours. Oh, is the applicant present as well?
I am Mr. Councilman Aaron Navarro from Snyder, Sakari and Associates.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Knight.
Okay, so as Mr. Petrosky read, the application here before you tonight is a proposal to consolidate 3 differently sized lots into a single parcel, then subdivide those into 3 lots of roughly the same size, on which 3 townhomes will be constructed. The townhomes will be attached. So there'll be 2 end units and then 1 in the middle. And then what will accompany the development will be site and access improvements, including improving the sidewalk along Swatara Street, improving access to the site from the rear of the property, from Compass Alley into parking pads in the back, and then also providing landscape screening and vegetation on site. Each of the units will, I believe, have 2 off-street parking spaces. So the overall project will sufficiently address any concerns that we generally hear from neighbors regarding the impact on on-street parking. The existing site right now is a largely overgrown lot. There's a small little parking area on it with a little chain link fence running along Swatara Street. Otherwise, it's relatively overgrown on the interior of the parcel or on the interior of the site. So overall, this will be a significant improvement to the existing conditions. It will bring 3 new units to the neighborhood that will be roughly similar to in size and I think appearance to some of the newer construction that you see just to the west along Swatara Street that were done as part of a Tri-County Housing Development Corporation project. So overall, this project will, bring new housing to the neighborhood and will also blend into the existing character of the neighborhood. So the Planning Bureau and Planning Commission both recommend that the request be approved with the following conditions. The applicant will coordinate with the city engineer to ensure that new sidewalks along Swatara Street will be constructed to meet ADA requirements. Plan Bureau recommends the applicant install sidewalks that are at least 6 feet in width with a strip of landscaping along the curb in which street trees can be planted. And I believe the applicant's site plan demonstrates that will be the case. The Planning Bureau would recommend the applicant consider setting the first floor of the proposed buildings at the grade of the adjacent sidewalk or installing sloping access paths to allow for ADA accessibility to the front entrances. And, this was mainly designed so that it's, again, ADA accessible. It really opens up the market for the types of potential renters that would be able to be housed in the properties, just so that we don't create steps. And therefore, I think a lot of the row homes that you see in the city have a short little step up to a porch, and you end up having to put in either ADA ramps or those ADA lifts. So making sure that we're either putting that on the sidewalk level or sloping the sidewalk, the access paths up to this door will ensure that you don't have to retrofit the property later in the future. And then the applicant will coordinate with the city arborist regarding the planting of any new trees on site or in the surrounding rights of way as part of the project. And the Planning Bureau would recommend the planting of 2 trees along Swatara Street. And as previously noted, I believe the applicant has indicated an intention to do that. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommend the request be approved for the following reasons. Proposed project will result in the development of currently vacant properties with quality affordable housing, meeting an urgent need in the city generally and the neighborhood specifically. The project will result in the enhancement of the surrounding rights of way, including the improvement of Swatara Street, construction of ADA compliant pedestrian infrastructure, and planting of street trees. And the project will meet all applicable zoning regulations and be constructed such that the building design, massing, and site configuration will represent compatible infill development that maintains the character of the surrounding neighborhood. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Councilman Madsen.
Thank you. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add?
No, Mr. Knight summarized it very well.
Looking at the plan, it looks fairly straightforward to me. The only thing I would ask is there any opportunity for perhaps local small businesses to participate in the project?
Such as?
Well, if there's any sort of work that could be advertised to our small business program, to just advertise if there's any work that could be bidded out, for example, just throwing that out there if there'd be any opportunities like that, or local workforce that we could potentially advertise to residents if they are looking for work or could help with the project.
I cannot answer for the developer, but I'm pretty sure he will put something out there for local businesses to help with construction with the facility.
Okay. That's it for me. I'll open it up to my colleagues, and I'll start as if we were on the dais. The other side, since the other council members preoccupied, so we'll do it. Councilwoman Bowers.
Thank you. Good evening. I saw on your application that MBE WEB participation was labeled to be determined. So I wanted to know if there is a diversity plan in place, or what does that status mean?
Well, at this point, I mean, we're not at a point where we're really ready to identify who's going to be involved in construction. We're still in the planning phase, as you know, at this point. So if an opportunity for a MDB or a WB contractor is available, we're more than welcome to entertain their applications.
Okay, thank you. My next question is just relative to affordable housing. Not sure if you were on to hear the discussion earlier in our meeting, but okay. So is that something, I see that was the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the so I just want to be clear that that is something that these 3 units will be an opportunity to participate in the potential affordable housing program within the city.
All I can say is, as far as affordable housing associated with these units is the rents will be comparable to the area.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any additional questions.
Okay. Councilwoman Green?
Thank you. I don't have any questions for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Allett? Oh, wait, no, excuse me, President Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Madsen. I just want to say thank you to the CR Property Group for providing single-family homes for our residents, which are greatly in need. My question was, Ms. Bowers had asked both of the questions that I had when I see it on the application number 5 to be determined. So as soon as you know that information, could you possibly forward that information to us about the MBE, WBE participation and whether or not you'd be interested in being inclusive in our affordable housing program?
Yes, ma'am. As soon as we know that information, we can provide that. But at this point, I'm not prepared to respond.
Right. Because I've been to that area today. As a matter of fact, I drove there just to see what the plot looked like. So thank you for, building homes there and taking all that vegetation down. That's all, Mr. Madsen.
Thank you, President Williams.
Yes.
Vice President Allett?
The only question I have is, there been community outreach to the neighbors about the project so far?
Not that I'm aware of.
And that'd be my only recommendation. I know you mentioned putting in parking there. It's a densely populated area, so any development, I'm sure, is going to have some type of impact to at least those immediate neighbors. And that's not to say they wouldn't be for it. I think it's just more just to get everybody in the loop about what's happening.
Okay, we will take that into account. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Councilman Majors, is he back? Okay, we'll take that as an absence. Okay, was there any other additional questions from council?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we will close out this, and then we will recommend that this resolution or land development plan be put up for a vote at our next legislative session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Resolution 18 of 2021. Mr. Petrosky, could you read the resolution into the record?
Yes, Resolution 18 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development plan to construct a 6-story mixed-use infill building with retail and office space located at 21 South 2nd Street.
Okay, is there anyone from the administration here to present the project?
Yes, sir, Councilman Matson.
And is the applicant here as well, present?
Yes, sir.
Could you identify your name for the record?
Brad Jones.
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay, Mr. Knight, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Councilman Matson. So the application before City Council here tonight is a proposal for a new development at the property at 21 South 2nd Street. It will be a 6-story mixed-use infill building. The first floor, I believe, is designed to have retail space. The second floor, office space. And then there would be apartments on the, I believe, 8 total apartments on the 4 floors above that. This is the site of the former Coronet restaurant building. It was torn down, I believe, over 2017, 2018. So it's kind of been a hole in the streetscape there since then. And this project was initially part of another project that the applicants got approval for, but they kind of modified how they went forward with that project. It was supposed to be combined with 17 South 2nd Street, but it's going forward kind of on its own now. So we're glad to see that part of the streetscape there get filled in. I believe the project will actually have a little light well in the back of the project too, so that there will be a patio on the 3rd floor, I want to say, and then balconies on the floors above that for units in the rear of that building. So the Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommend that City Council approve the request with the following conditions. The applicant will submit an easement application and receive approval by the city for the proposed awning and any other projections from the front of the structure as indicated in the rendering. Any proposed signage advertising the businesses on site will conform to the regulations in Chapter 7-325 of the Zoning Code, or file a zoning relief request and receive approval from the Zoning Hearing Board. The Planning Bureau would recommend that the applicant consider using a green roof to manage stormwater runoff generated by the development, or install a roof painted with high albedo colors to reduce the impacts of the urban heat island effect. And basically what that means is, painting the roof white, that ends up resulting in light being reflected off the buildings instead of being absorbed and then radiated out at night, which is, again, a contributor to the urban heat island effect that raises the temperatures around urban centers. So as this is new development, we just kind of wanted to have the applicant consider how they might, treat the top of the building and what types of green infrastructure they might be able to incorporate into this new construction. But it's certainly not a requirement. It's more of a nice to have. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommend that the request be approved for the following reasons. The project will substantially improve the aesthetics of the site in contrast to both the previous building on site and the existing vacant lot, and will positively contribute to the overall appearance of the gateway into Market Square. The proposed project will replace a blighted structure in the city's historic Market Square and a gateway traveled by thousands of commuters and visitors every day with a compatible mixed-use infill development. And the proposed project will add new residents to the neighborhood and activate Market Square on nights and weekends while growing a customer base to support local businesses. With that, I will hand it back to you, Councilman Madsen.
Thank you for that. Mr. Jones, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Knight did a great job of explaining the project. I'll be happy to answer any questions from any members of council.
Yeah, okay. This question's for Mr. Knight. I see that there will be no additional parking added to this project. Do you want to touch on that and see if there's any kind of concerns there or any issues with parking constraints?
So the property is located in the downtown center zoning district, which does not require off-street parking for new uses per section 7-327.2 of the zoning code. But I think, the expectation is that customers would arrive similarly to how they would arrive to businesses and units on the adjacent property at 17 South 2nd Street, which also likewise does not have any off-street parking. The property is directly across the street from a parking garage. There is some on-street parking directly in front if somebody, needs to run in, or if, for example, there's a restaurant there on the first floor and you have DoorDash, somebody delivering food. And otherwise, I think the expectation would be that that residents of the building would identify parking in the same way that other residents of the projects that Harristown has done in the past have done. And that's either they don't have a vehicle to begin with, or they maybe work for the state and they're able to park it in one of the state garages, or they're able to find parking, in a garage or maybe elsewhere in the city, or maybe on City Island as a part of their consideration of living there. So it'll be a bit of a self-selecting group that would know coming into that situation that there wouldn't be a dedicated parking space. But perhaps Brad can speak a little bit more to the considerations they've made on that regard.
Sure. The Market Square garage is right across the street from this proposed project, and it is, I think, the hope that both residents and office tenants will be able to utilize that garage at Market Square, which is a very nice garage inside the city portfolio of garages. And SP Plus has a newly updated residential parking program for residents that want to park their cars in a city garage, and we're hoping that that'll help provide some additional revenue to the parking system and ultimately the city as well.
Thank you. In regards to the project, will there be any opportunities for MWBE participation in terms of the developing the project, or in terms of constructing it?
Yep. We haven't selected our general contractor yet at this time, but we will absolutely be perusing the full list of MBE and WBE contractors available. And I was hoping that maybe somebody could tell me if that list that is, I think, currently listed on the city's website at 2018, has that been updated recently?
Jamal Jones, our small business administrator, would be the one that would have the most up-to-date list and can provide
Fantastic.
that.
We'd love to see an updated list as well.
Okay. Yes. Please reach out to him to get that list.
Thank you.
And I'll leave it at that. I'll open it up to my colleagues since it's a busy night tonight. So I will start again, assuming that my colleagues that would normally be on the other side of the dais are preoccupied. I will open it up to Councilwoman Bowers.
Thank you. I just have one question regarding an opportunity to participate in the city's potential affordable housing program. As you know, we're currently at 20%. The thought is we would move to 30%. So I just wanted to know if that was something that you were open to with this project.
Yeah, we're certainly looking at all the bills that the council's debating and studying right now, and looking forward to learning more about how we can work this project and others into that that affordable housing arena. I also want to point out that over the last year we've been listening to members of council in previous hearings, and we've actually taken two of our former student housing projects, one at 318, 320 Chestnut, now under the name of Dewberry Station, and another one at 312, 314 Chestnut, now under the name of International Place, and upgraded those units and offered those up into the market at a much more affordable price. So those are starting at, those units from studios to 2 bedrooms are from $650 a month up to about $950 a month. And that includes all utilities, every, water, sewer, trash, electric, and basic cable and Wi-Fi internet. And they also come fully furnished if the customer would like them. So we still have we've got 25 of those units that we've put on the market throughout 2020. There still are a few available for lease. And I encourage you to look at hbgrealty.net, which is our brokerage house that is marketing those for us. And we're with the success of this program, and we're very excited about it. We've made it available to our employees as well for an employee housing program, and it's really helped us provide a whole new level of very nice but much more affordable housing, and we intend to try to add to that this year.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any additional questions.
Thank you for that. Councilwoman Green?
Thank you. I don't have many questions. One question I have is, do you have a timeline that you look to complete this project?
Yeah, this project is probably would start on this project in 22. We're not quite sure yet when, but probably mid 22, finish in mid 23.
All right. Thank you. That is the only question I have.
Okay, thank you for that. President Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. Well, Mr. Jones, I think you're off the hook now because I'm looking at some of your apartments in Dewberry Station. And I'm glad you heard my message in the last 5 or 6 years, because you and I have been combative about providing affordable housing when you've been renovating all these office buildings. And I'm looking at your 318 Chestnut Street, Unit 9, and I'm really impressed at $700 a month. So thank you for listening to the concerns of council and also the needs of the citizens of Harrisburg.
Appreciate all your comments, and we've been working hard to try to build our inventory. And like I said, we plan to do more, President Williams.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Allett?
Brad, the only question I have, is this a reimagined plan for this space? Because wasn't it previously a project that was going to be extended office space, or am I confusing that with something different?
No, you are correct. It is reimagined. We've been, working hard with our architect on trying to figure out the best way to try to build this. It's a small site and it's a tricky site, but I think that we feel like this design is a good mix of both office, retail, and residential.
Sounds good. At least I'm not losing my mind at this point.
You're right on target. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Brad. That's all I had.
Thank you. And is Council Majors? Is he still absent? Okay, looks like it. All right. Was there any further questions from council members? Okay. Seeing none, do appreciate you, Mr. Jones, taking council's feedback and adapting and using some of your units to be a little bit more below market rate. We really much appreciate you doing that. And with nothing else, we'll just move this right along to our next legislative session for a vote.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is resolution 19 of 2021. Mr. Petrosky, could you read that into the minutes?
Yes, resolution 19 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development plan to convert an existing office building into an 8-unit multi-family dwelling located at 25 North Front Street.
Okay, I'll assume that Mr. Knight will be presenting on behalf of the administration. And Mr. Knight?
Yeah, I just want to make sure the applicant, Mr. Dilks, is here.
I am.
Okay, excellent. So as Mr.
If the applicant could state their name and title for the record.
Sure. Derek Dilks, owner of 25 North Front LLC.
Thank you. Mr. Knight?
Okay, as Mr. Petrosky noted, this project is converting an existing office building into an 8-unit apartment building with off-street parking in the rear of the property. It's actually just outside back of City Hall here. I believe there was at one point a law firm on the first floor, but I'm not sure what other commercial uses may have been in the building. But it is definitely originally a residential use, so the applicant is taking the property back to its original development. This project required zoning relief for the establishment of a multifamily dwelling, which the applicant did receive late last year. So the project is fully in compliance with the zoning at this point, or has gotten the zoning relief that was necessary. The project, I also believe, has sufficient off-street parking as required by the zoning code, so the applicant did not have to request a relief from off-street parking. So the overall project is a good, again, example of a conversion of a building back into residential units. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommend the request be approved of the following conditions. The applicant will submit a certificate of appropriateness application and receive approval from HARB for any proposed exterior alterations to the building. And I don't know off the top of my head whether any have been proposed. I believe the applicant is generally considering leaving the building envelope as is. And the applicant will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to ensure that the account billing is updated to reflect the proposed change in use, and also to make sure that the refuse storage containers are sufficient to meet the needs of an 8-unit apartment building. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission recommend that the request be approved for the following reasons. The proposed project will adaptively reuse a partially vacant office building, reestablishing the original use of the property and assuring that a historically, architecturally, and culturally significant property finds a viable use that will ensure its maintenance and preservation moving forward. The proposed reuse will add new residents to the neighborhood and activate the street and riverfront park on nights and weekends and grow a customer base to support local businesses. And other conversions of former office buildings along this stretch of Front Street have demonstrated that the proposed use will not impact the character of the neighborhood. So the property at 17 North Front Street was likewise converted into a multifamily dwelling, and again, has not had an adverse impact on the character of the neighborhood. So with that, I will hand it back to you, Councilman Madsen.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add?
Not at this time. I'm here more just to answer any questions that council may have. I appreciate your time this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, if you've been following the other similar line of questioning, I do see for your MWBE participation in your application, you wrote no. Care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, just to clarify, there's one subcontractor I've used consistently for the past 15 years in the city of Harrisburg who is currently undergoing their MBE certification. And in fact, they were supposed to hear something this week. So it was only to state that it's not a certified MBE, but I statistically have used anywhere from 60 to 75% minority businesses as my subcontractors for all city projects. And this will apply to the next 3 projects that you're hearing this evening. So I hope to be able to check yes on future applications, because that was the intent of the MBE.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, sure.
Again, because it's a busy evening, I won't ask too many questions. I'll let my colleagues answer some questions so they have time for theirs. Similar to last time, Councilwoman Bowers, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Similar to last time, I'd just like to ask if you, is there a possibility that should council implement the affordable housing program? Is that something that you see potential with for this property or future projects?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, this is not a large project by any means compared to the other projects you've heard this evening, but it's actually 7 apartments. that we're doing here, and of that 20% are, and by my definition, affordable. I know that's a whole other debate of what is affordable, but I have a lot of experience in the Harrisburg rental market, and my apartments range anywhere from, the lowest I have right now is $500, going all the way up to $1,900. So there's a large, it's a big swing there for rents. But two of the units on this project are by what I would consider affordable. And similar to Mr. Jones's apartments, they range in anywhere from $650 to $750 for the affordability definition. For, again, this is for me, I'm not stating any factually that's affordable, but historically we've determined that is a somewhat affordable price point for an apartment in the city. And then on the higher end of this project, the most expensive apartment would be $1,500. And that does include certain utilities such as trash, water, sewer, and parking is included in that price.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions.
Thank you. Councilman Green?
No, I don't have any questions on this project. Thank you.
Okay. President Williams?
I don't have any questions as well, Mr. Mattson.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Allett?
So this is kind of a random question. It looks like, if I'm looking at everything, that the project itself is bordered on multiple sides. Do you anticipate any specific challenges with kind of the reno that you're going to do in terms of just disruption to the previous and adjacent properties at all?
No, I don't believe so. It is a bookended property. Recently, the Dauphin County Library System purchased the adjoining property to the north, and that's also undergoing renovations. And we're actually doing renovations somewhat in concert. So I think it's actually going to work out well for both of us to be under construction at the same time. But no, I mean, this was originally a single family home, as it was what's known as Governor's Row. It was then converted to 7 apartments, ironically. From the 7 apartments, it then went to a full office, which is occupied by a nonprofit that moved out of the city and has been vacant since. So we're actually really converting it back to the footprint of the previous 7 apartments. So it actually, it's one of the less challenging projects on the agenda this evening in that regard.
Gotcha. Good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll assume, yeah, Councilman Majors is still preoccupied. So with that, was there any other questions from my colleagues? Okay, hearing none. Thank you to the applicant for coming out this evening and going over the project with us, and we will move this to our next legislative session for a vote. Move on to the next item. That is Resolution 20 of 2021. Mr. Petrowski, could you read the resolution into the minutes?
Yes, Resolution 20 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development plan to convert an existing office building into a 6-unit multifamily dwelling located at 321 North Front Street.
Okay. Mr. Knight, I'm assuming you'll be presenting on behalf of the administration again.
That is correct.
And is it the same applicant or is it a different applicant?
Same applicant.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep, Mr. Dilks will be the applicant for the final 3 applications, resolutions for tonight.
Okay.
So as Mr. Petrowski noted, the project is proposing to convert an existing office building, and I believe it's been vacant for quite some time, into a 6-unit apartment building that has a first floor common area featuring a lounge for residents and visitors and storage space in the rear of the building. This project also received zoning relief at the end of last year. The applicant had initially proposed a 9-unit apartment conversion for this project, and at the Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board meetings, there was a bit of concern about the off-street parking required for that many units. The property does have a paved lot in the rear of the property, accessed from River Alley. However, I believe they may have been using like some sort of valet parking arrangement where people would park each other in within the office building. But the planning commissioners and zoning hearing board members were a little bit more concerned about how that would work within a multifamily dwelling. So through some back and forth with those boards, the applicant ended up revising the number of units downward to 6 units, and with a agreement with the planning commission that they would put in a diagonal parking arrangement for spaces in the back. And the applicant did get approval from the zoning hearing board for the multifamily dwelling and for the requested relief from off-street parking. So the Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission recommend that the request be approved with the following conditions. The applicant will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to ensure that the account billing is updated to reflect the proposed change in use. And again, similar to the last project, we want to make sure that the refuse container is also sufficient for a multifamily dwelling, and that the Department of Public Works is able to access whatever sort of refuse storage they have. The Planning Bureau would recommend the applicant consider additional amenities such as landscaped area or bike racks for any of the rear portion of the property not dedicated to off-street parking. So as noted, the property ends, I believe there was something like 40 feet or so between the back of the existing building and the river alley. And so the depth of the required parking is about 18 feet, maybe 20 if you put in a little buffer. So there would be additional space there in which the applicant can maybe put in impervious surface or outdoor space for residents, or as noted in the Planning Bureau's conditions of approval, bike racks for those residents who may choose not to have a car. And then the final condition is that the applicant will install parking in the rear of the property in diagonal configuration. As I had previously noted, I believe this is to ensure easier access to those spaces rather than having head-in spaces, because the alley behind the property there is actually a little bit narrower than River Alley is further down, like behind the city government center. So it may be a little bit more difficult doing turning motions in for head-in parking. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommend the request be approved for the following reasons. The proposed project will adaptively reuse a vacant office building, bringing in historically, architecturally, and culturally significant property into productive reuse, and in fact will reestablish a residential use on site. Proposed reuse will add new residents to the neighborhood and activate the street and riverfront park on nights and weekends, and grow a customer base to support local businesses. And then other conversions of former office buildings along this stretch of Front Street have demonstrated that the proposed use will not adversely impact the character of the neighborhood. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Councilman Madsen.
Okay, thank you for that. I have a feeling the applicant will know what some of the questions are going to be. So do you have any thing you'd like to go over or add?
Well, no, I just like to just express that this is very comparable and similar in scope to 25 North Front Street. It was a vacant office building. It was originally a single family dwelling, which was converted to several uses over the years. It's one of the more historic properties on Front Street, being built in 1841. So it's a really great property. And I'm excited about converting this to what I believe is its highest and best use as a apartment project. And again, my commitment to use MBE subs as much as possible. This project actually has the same, it's framing, drywall, and installation contractor who I mentioned previously, who is currently awaiting MBE certification. They are using, I'm using them on this project as well, which is a very good chunk of the project. As far as affordability, I have one affordable. What I would define as affordable, this is a very expensive project. It's more money and it's less units than 25 North Front Street. But I'm doing the best I can to make this affordable for the community.
Thank you. Okay, start with Councilwoman Bowers. Any additional questions?
Thank you. Just maybe one. In terms of the one affordable unit, what would that range be for rent?
Right now, on my pro forma, I have 750, and similar to 25 North Front, that would include water, sewer, trash. It would not include electric. We will have separate metered electric on this property, but would also include basic cable and Wi-Fi.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Green?
No further questions for this. Thank you.
You, President Williams.
Regarding the parking, you said, I'm trying to look and, trying to, in my head, see about the parking. You said that they preferred him to have diagonal parking instead of head-on parking. How's that going to be? Because that's such a small area in that, between those two buildings.
Yeah, it is. And quite frankly, I would prefer to do a stacked scenario where similar, in fact, the directly adjoining properties often do this. They'll have 3 deep and they'll just coordinate between users of the project to allow multiple cars. It's called stacked parking.
Right.
But if we do diagonal, we can actually, the ironic thing is we get less vehicles because you're correct in that it's a narrow, it's a narrow width. So we can get the architect believes we can get 4 parking spaces instead of 6. It's still tight though. Quite frankly, it's still tight. But we're actually reducing the density and the use of this building. So really, when this was being used as an office, it was Mr. Clark of Clark Resources, and Fred used to have 6 to 7 cars sometimes parked back there. Very,
yeah, it was really congested.
Yeah, really congested.
Because I looked at the property.
We're doing our best, and actually, there's a utility pole in the back that it's a mess. It's got all kinds of power and wiring. We're working to have that relocated and have the cables put underground. That would help with some of the clearances when you back in and front end.
Right.
But right now it's 4 spaces, and that's the best we can do with a diagonal scenario. So
I just remember that several times the police were called to that particular parking area because people would block them in.
Yeah.
It's the problem that they always had at that 321 address.
Yeah. Yes.
That's why I was concerned about how you would be, you would make the parking available for those residents. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. It's a challenge. We're going to do the best we can in the urban environment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, President Williams. Vice President Allett?
I don't know any questions. I'm happy to see some of these projects go on downtown and converting back from office to residential. I've always thought that there were so many kind of missed opportunities of things that probably should have been residential and never stopped being residential. But I'm also feeling a bit nostalgic because my first apartment was downtown way too long ago. So it's nice to see some of these projects come to fruition.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. Is there any other questions from my council members? Okay. Seeing none, we will put this up for our next legislative session for a vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'll pull up the next one. Apologies, I'm having a technical issue. We just went over resolution 20, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next resolution. That's resolution 21 of 2021. Mr. Petrosky, could you read it into the record?
Resolution 21 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development plan to convert an existing office building into a 5-unit multifamily dwelling located at 130 State Street.
Okay, Mr. Knight, floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilman Madsen. This project is again similar to the previous 2 that council heard in that it will be converting an existing office building into apartments. This one, like the last property, had been vacant for quite a while per the city's records. This one likewise had to go through the zoning relief process to establish a multifamily dwelling in the Riverfront District. But unlike the last one, the applicant has the required 6 off-street parking spaces at a nearby property that's accessed from Adams Alley nearby, in which to provide the requisite off-street parking. This project will also, so this will be a 5-unit apartment building, and this project will have a unique live-work unit on the first floor, whereby there will be kind of an apartment unit toward the back of the first floor, but the street frontage along State Street will actually have space for commercial office. So that'll be kind of a unique configuration that, frankly, we may see more of going forward post-COVID, where people might be working more out of their homes and doing more telecommuting. So it'll be kind of interesting to see, how this is received, the occupancy of this space moving forward. So that's kind of a little detail that's different from the last 2 projects that we had reviewed. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommend that the request be approved with the following conditions. Any new signage for the commercial component of the proposed live-work unit will be in conformance with the regulations in Chapter 7-325 of the zoning code, or will file a zoning relief application as necessary and receive approval from the zoning hearing board. The applicant will submit a certificate of appropriateness application for harbor view for any proposed exterior alterations to the building, including any potential signage. And aside from signage, I don't know that the applicant has proposed any work that will require harbor view at this point. And then finally, the applicant will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to ensure that the account billing is updated to reflect the proposed change in use, and to ensure that the refuse container is sufficient to meet the needs and accessible to the Department of Public Works. I'd also note that the applicant is doing another change of use project just down the street at 124 State Street that did not trigger a land development plan application, but they may be able to consolidate the refuse needs of both of those projects into a single location to make it easier for the Department of Public Works to pick up trash. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommend that the request be approved for the following reasons. Proposed project will adaptively reuse a vacant office building, bringing in historically and architecturally significant property into productive use. The proposed reuse will add new residents to the neighborhood to activate the street on nights and weekends and grow a customer base to support local businesses. And the project will include the establishment of a mixed-use live-work unit on site, a unique addition to the city's residential inventory. With that, I will hand it back to you, Councilman Madsen.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add?
No, just very similar comments to the previous projects. I will note that this project has much smaller units. There's 5 apartments plus a live-work unit, and average square foot's anywhere from 550 to 700 square feet. So by design, these are somewhat affordable units that do have parking. And I do agree with Jeffrey. I think the live work, I think having an option to be close to your office or have that other space to work from if you're not going in the office will be somewhat unique. And we're really listening to the community and the market about offering a place to go that's still downtown, that's affordable for an office user by having smaller office suites available. So that's the thing that differentiates this project from the others.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. We'll open it up to questions now. I'll start from the other side. Vice President Allett.
I do not have any questions on this one.
Okay. President Williams.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilwoman Green.
I don't have any questions for this either. Thank you.
Councilwoman Bowers.
I have 2 questions. So I just wanted to note, so with this one, do you anticipate how many would you deem to be affordable, and what would that rent range look like?
Sure. So my calculations on this one actually show that I'm meeting the 30% requirement by having 2 2 of the 6. So, and that would include the live workspace, because if you break it down by per square foot of revenue, we're at about $1 per square foot, which translates to about $499 for the office space. And then the first floor rear unit is slightly larger at about 600 square feet, and we're at $1.20 there. So that puts us at about $700 for that first floor rear unit. So I'd like to think by having those 2 units, it makes it approachable and affordable for many in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other additional questions from council members? Okay, seeing none, we will put the resolution up for a vote at our next legislative session. Thank you. And then we'll be moving on to the next item on the agenda. Wow. Okay. Resolution 2022 of 2021. Mr. Petrowski, could you read the resolution into the record?
Sure. Resolution 22 of 2021 is a resolution approving a preliminary final land development plan to convert an existing vacant church into an 8-unit multifamily dwelling located at 260 Bow Street.
Okay, Mr. Knight.
Yeah, so this project is a bit more unique than the previous 3 projects that the applicant is proposing. As Mr. Petrowski noted, this project is proposing to convert the existing vacant church into an 8-unit multifamily dwelling. This was one of the 10 churches that was disposed of by the Susquehanna Conference of the United Methodist Church, I believe in 2018. And I know a few of those have been bought by other congregations, but to my knowledge, this is the first one that is undergone a conversion to a different use. So it's definitely a really unique space as far as converting it into a different use, given that, churches tend to have very high ceilings, open floor plans. So you're putting in kind of all that internal division as part of these projects. So this is a really kind of unique project in converting a church into something different here in the city. And obviously, the church occupies the entirety of the site, so the applicant is not able to provide the required off-street parking. But as part of the zoning relief review that the applicant went through to both establish the multifamily dwelling use on site as well as to exceed the residential density, they also had initially requested relief from the off-street parking requirements, but through the Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board meetings, the applicant agreed to provide off-street parking for the residents at a nearby property they owned at 909 Green Street. And as part of the review of this project of the land development plan application, the planning commissioners had him tie those leases to the spaces at 909 Green Street. So the applicant is able to provide the off-street parking for the residents about a block away to the south. The Planning Commission, or the Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission, both recommend that the City Council approve the request with the following conditions. Per the Zoning Hearing Board decision on January 25th, 2021, the applicant will designate the required off-street parking for the use at 909 Green Street. The applicants will coordinate with the city's historic preservation specialist on any proposed exterior alterations to the property and will file a certificate of appropriateness application and receive approval from HARB for any work city staff deems it necessary to do so. I don't know if the applicant has gotten far enough into determining what types of exterior alterations may be done, whether things like lighting may be added, whether they'll be retaining the stained glass windows or whether they'll go to just clear pane windows. But that's something that if there are any changes, they'll have to coordinate with Frank Grumbine, the city's historic preservation specialist, to make sure it goes through the proper review. And then finally, the applicant will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to ensure that the account billing is updated to reflect the new development and to identify the appropriate refuse storage needs and location. And as noted, the building occupies the entirety of the site. So they're not able to like keep a dumpster on site, but I believe there's a small kind of pathway off of Susquehanna Street at the rear of the property in which the applicant will be storing toters that can be picked up by the Department of Public Works. The Planning Bureau and the Planning Commission both recommend that the request be approved for the following reasons. The applicant received the requisite zoning relief at the January 25th, 2021 zoning hearing board meeting to establish the proposed use. The subject property, a church, represents a difficult footprint and internal configuration to adaptively reuse. While such properties have been adaptively rehabilitated into a variety of different uses in other cities, an apartment building proposal seems appropriate for the subject property. The project will ensure the continuing activation and maintenance of a property that is a significant architectural, cultural, and historic landmark in the Midtown neighborhood. The longer the property remains vacant, the more difficult it will be to bring it up to a state of good repair. And I believe maintenance costs and issues were one of the cited reasons by the Susquehanna Conference for disposing of the properties that they did within the city. And then finally, the proposed reuse will add residents to the neighborhood to activate the street on nights and weekends and grow a customer base to support local businesses. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Councilman Madsen.
Okay. The applicant have anything they'd like to add?
Just that this is probably one of the more challenging adaptive reuse projects that I'm undertaking in the city. Again, it's smaller in scope than many, but I think it's important. It's going to take a prominent, historically significant structure in the Midtown area and reuse it. The other note I would just like to say that there is a by right use of a bakery or retail for this. While I don't have a tenant or a lease in hand, one of the options I was exploring was maybe potentially to get a small business to maybe come and use this building, assuming it would be allowed. And we would get the necessary relief or approvals that would be needed for a by right use. But regardless, it's challenging. So I'm running into a little bit more of a problem on the affordability side. However, I will say this is a larger structure, and with only having 8 units, we can offer some 2 bedrooms. So the units here are going to start at about $1,400. So if you could have a shared roommate scenario, it may make it more affordable for some. There are certainly comparable units that are going for much more in this particular area. In fact, 909 Green Street, which is the former Bose School, we're seeing some of the highest rent rates in the city on that project. So these will be substantially below that. But it is challenging because it's going to take a lot of money to restore this church. So I'm doing the best I can with that.
Yeah, I was looking through the photos there, and it's I'm familiar with that church. So it's kind of sad to see it getting torn down, but at the same time, glad it's not staying and then eventually becoming blighted. So glad it is being reutilized for something else to benefit the community. Yeah, with that, we'll open it up to questions from my colleagues. And I will start with Councilwoman Bowers.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Green.
No questions, just a comment. I love the adaptive reuse. I feel like we need more of this in the city. We have so many large buildings from when we were more industrial that they're just sitting there blighted. Not just in Midtown, but throughout our city, we see large structures that could really be used to address some of the housing needs that we need in the city. So I challenge you to move on past Midtown and look at some of the other areas in the city and seeing how you can bring some of the same revitalization to those buildings as well. I also would hope that you keep the stained glass. That's just my personal preference because it's just such a characteristic of the church. I think it's the character. These are all my personal opinions. But, and if you aren't able to keep that stained glass, which I think will help the property value to increase for rent. But if you weren't able to, I would hope that you're able to donate them to someone who could could reuse them and, keep them in use somehow. So thank you for working on these projects. I look forward to you with more projects in the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Green. And I echo a lot of your comments. All right, President Williams.
I just concur with Councilwoman Green too as well, that I like to see them go out of the area of the Midtown area and go out of, the other areas, the 7 other areas, the districts of the city, to do the revitalization of some of the other churches.
Agreed. Vice President Allett.
Yeah, I just want to comment. Derek, you brought up a really important conversation around the adaptive use and the costly nature of it. We've been, I know since I've been on council, we've talked a lot about a lot of corridors of the city, like the Cameron Street corridor and some other buildings that, have been in disrepair for a long time. And the cost of renovating them and making them usable again is often seen as not being doable for so many. So I think this is a great project because it's a bigger project than the other projects you're doing downtown, but it's not as big as some projects I think should happen. So I really do think this could really serve as kind of a model for some of the adaptive reuse that needs to happen across the city. So my hope is that this can help spur not just interest, but just a commitment to take some of those spaces that that need to be adapted. And quite honestly, we need housing, and so it's kind of a win-win. And I realize that you're battling with the cost versus what the rent would be for an apartment because of the cost of doing the project. And I appreciate your comments on that because I think it just brings up some of the various challenges that exist. But I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like when you're all done, but also hopefully it will serve as a good example for some other potential projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any other additional questions from my colleagues?
Hey, Dave, I was able to.
Hey.
Yeah, sorry.
Floor is yours.
Yeah, sorry. Just, I guess, 2 things quick. In terms of the, are you working to do anything with any of the property that was left over? Old church has, may have had some things that could have been either reused or donated in the community. Are you looking to use any of the, reclaimed, wood or, for any other purpose?
Sure. Yeah, I'm working closely with Historic Harrisburg to repurpose and donate any of the equipment, primarily music. There's about 5 pianos that came with this property. So I've been in touch with Historic Harrisburg Association. I've also been in touch with Grace United Methodist Church as well to see if there's any use of potential of the pews and any of those other items that we just simply can't reuse in the project. So I have been reaching out to the community to see what we could do to potentially reuse those items. But I'm hoping to reuse a lot of the original items that came with the church, such as the stained glass windows, the trim, and a lot of the woodwork that's still intact. So we will be incorporating that into the design and the redevelopment of the project.
Okay. And then have you heard any concern from any of the members, residents in the adjacent properties? I know there's a couple of things, there's an old carriage house and a few other things right in that area that are right either adjoining or right next to the property. Or have they expressed any concerns with this adaptive reuse?
No, we've received pretty much overwhelming support for the project itself. There were some concerned neighbors, I'll say, and concerned citizens in the adjoining properties about parking. Really, that seems to be the most consistent concern among all these projects, whether it's me or Brad Jones or anybody else. So we, again, being thoughtful as best we can, we try to alleviate that concern by providing alternative parking when it can be provided. And in this case, we happen to have a surplus of off-street parking at a nearby property along the same street, along Susquehanna there. So we'll be providing 8 parking spaces dedicated for this project, which should alleviate any additional on-street parking for that section of Bow Street right there. But as far as the project, I've had pretty much overwhelming support. I haven't heard any negative comments or otherwise for the project being converted.
Okay, and my apologies for missing some of the resolutions that you had. But I guess with this, I'll just stick to this project then. Is there any ADA compliant residents that you're looking to, units that you're looking to ensure that they are ADA accessible?
Yes, in fact, the ground floor, there's 4 units on the ground floor. 2 of them will be ADA accessible. There's already an existing ramp and ADA accessible door entry that we're going to reuse. So that it's helpful that it's actually there already, because sometimes it can be challenging with a historic property with HARB to get the necessary approvals for ramps and handrails. So because it's an existing condition, we do have an ADA ramp and an ADA accessible entrance for 2 of the units.
Okay, thank you. And like I said, and like my other council members have said, wanting to reuse these properties is a good thing, and we understand having to balance, affordability with, building costs, but at least glad to hear, or I believe that some of the other properties that you have, there's a range of rents that are being charged. So, good. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I will say too, I am working with Mr. Jones. Jamal's been a great help. This is the first time I'll be attempting to do a LERTA project in the city. So he's been a great help in assisting me with that. And also even helping with identifying small businesses or small contractors that can help with many of these projects. On some of these previous projects, you may not have been there for, I did express my commitment to working with one particular MBE in the process of being MBE certified sub in the city, and he's been a great asset to me. He does all the framing, drywall, installation, and he'll be the subcontractor doing on all 4 of these projects that you've heard this evening. So, but Jamal's been a great help. I just want to state that for the record.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any additional questions? Okay. Seeing none, we will move this resolution up for a vote at our next legislative session. Thank you. And that concludes the business of the Community and Economic Development Committee. On to you, President Williams.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mattson. Mr. Petrosky, do we have any public comment?
Yeah, at this time, if anyone would like to speak on any of the legislation discussed tonight, please raise your hand. I will mute you, and you please identify yourself for the record. Okay, you're unmuted.
Hi, this is Alex Domingos. I just had a quick question. There was repeated mention of required parking spaces, and I just wondered if anyone on council could speak to that, and if there's a worry that with required parking for all these projects, you're incentivizing people to keep driving as opposed to incentivizing less use of cars for all types of environmental and public health reasons.
I think we may want to.
Is Mr. Knight available?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm still here.
Mr. Knight, would you address that, please?
Sure, Mr. Domingos. Our zoning code has 9 overall zoning districts, and 2 of the districts, the downtown center and the commercial neighborhood districts, do not have off-street parking requirements. And so that's generally, the downtown, and then some of the commercial corridors as they go out of the downtown, 3rd Street, Market Street, Dairy Street. So in some of those kind of traditional corridors, we do not have those off-street parking requirements, recognizing that, the buildings there are taking up a lot of the lot, or we want to make sure we're occupying them with, business space or residential units as opposed to parking. And so it's generally been the Planning Bureau's perspective to support requests for relief from off-street parking when they do come through. But we also like to try and find creative ways to address parking because, while we definitely support the end goal that you had discussed about, eventually we'll be getting to autonomous vehicles where they'll just drive up to your, door, pick you up and whisk you off to wherever you're going. We're not there yet. And there will certainly be, a period of transition to getting to that location, to getting to that kind of condition. So what our goal always is in looking at these is to, encourage bicycle infrastructure, the inclusion of racks, is to work with the city engineers department to incorporate bicycle infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure, as you heard a little bit about earlier today. And then 3, to make sure that we're maximizing the use of the parking that we do have in the city, so that we're not, knocking down a building to build parking spaces that we might not need in 10, 15 years, but that we're looking for the areas where we can use existing paving, for example, in a way that provides the most parking, while not encouraging too much use. Because I do agree with you in the inducing of parking. One of the biggest factors in whether people drive is whether they have a parking space and a place to store their car. So we want to be cognizant of the existing kind of transportation needs that people have and the existing concerns about parking that residents have in the neighborhood, while not trying to engineer our built environment to build more parking. So we're looking for those existing surface parking lots. For example, maybe if a church has an existing surface parking lot and they're only using it 1-2 days a week, we try and see if applicants can work with that organization to get a lease to be able to use it during the weekdays, for example. So we are aware of the concerns that you addressed, and we're trying to address them as best we can with an eye towards that future, either car-free or car-optional lifestyle, or to where we're at autonomous vehicles where people don't need to own their own personal vehicle and store it on the street or on their property.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Is there any additional public comment, Mr. Petrosky?
If anyone else would like to provide public comment, please raise your hand at this time.
See anybody?
To raise your hand, press *6. I believe, is that right, Momin? *9.
See anybody?
Last call for public comment.
Okay. Mr. Majors, did you want to say something? I'm sorry. You had came in before Mr. Knight came in. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say the same thing, was to have Mr. Knight address that question, since he had the subject matter expertise.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Majors. Okay, Mr. Petrosky, no additional public comment, I see.
Not at this time.
Okay. I have a motion to adjourn, please.
Oh, I have one order of meeting.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you. I just wanted to share that Bethel AME Church, located at 1721 North 5th Street, will serve as a site for residents over the age of 65 to get a COVID vaccination. This will occur on Sunday, March 21st, beginning at 2 p.m. If you're interested in scheduling a vaccination, please call Pastor Brangman at 302-249-6783. That's 302-249-6783. 100 vaccinations will be available.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And say that number again one more time for the residents, please.
Sure. That's Pastor Brangman. His number is 302-249-6783.
And can he be reached between what hours, Ms. Bowers?
I would say normal
normal business hours. Okay.
Hours, please.
Okay.
I would appreciate that. Again, the vaccination date is Sunday, March 21st, beginning at 2 p.m.
Okay, thank you. That's very good information. Any other good and welfare?
Yeah, President Williams, I had two. It's actually a good follow-up to Councilwoman Bowers. A few folks in the community have reached out to me wondering what the vaccination plans will be like in the city. And some have expressed some frustration that they're seeing it happening at HAC on Cameron, but not at the Hamilton Health Center. I know that while there probably is some vaccinations happening at the Hamilton Health Center, it's not a mass vaccination site. So is there any way we could have a public hearing to discuss the role of the city, a plan, or maybe invite some folks from the county or federal government or state that could maybe speak on the vaccination rollout and what it may look like in the city of Harrisburg? It's just a suggestion.
Okay, great suggestion. I'll try to contact Ms. Janine Peterson, who is the executive director over at Hamilton Health.
Okay, and then I just wanted to, Council Majors, did you have a point there?
Yeah, I think as I think we discussed it briefly at the end of our meeting last week, I'd also suggest us reaching out to the county as well to participate in any type of hearing. As you rightly mentioned, it looks like there are plans at the county level coming together to have a community vaccination clinic or a large vaccination clinic at HAC. But we do want to ensure that there's additional equity involved in vaccine allocation and vaccine distribution in our community. So I think anything that we do should include, any hearing that we do should include the county if possible. Great to hear from Councilwoman Bowers that one of our churches is going to have some vaccine available. But we do want to make sure we're coordinating so that folks that may not have transportation can still get access to vaccine within the city. So yeah, I would hope that we can get Chief Enterline, who's our emergency management coordinator for the city, the county, and as well as maybe either Commissioner Priest or Hartwick or someone who can all get together and talk to us about trying to get some additional resources to the city. And it looks like Councilwoman Bowers has something else to add.
I do believe coordination is occurring at Hamilton Health Center, and I also think we should include Mrs. Sheila Dow Ford in that discussion. I believe she's instrumental in that.
Yeah, she did reach out to us. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. She reached out, and I had sent an email over to President Williams as well as Councilwoman Green, because I wasn't sure how to, what exactly committee it would fall under, whether it would be a committee of the whole or admin or public safety, but ensuring that that Ms. Dow Ford, Ms. Peterson from Hamilton Health, someone from UPMC as well, since they do have a large footprint in the city and they are offering vaccine at one of their other locations, but not currently their city location. And I think as we're seeing at the federal level, more vaccines coming online. It's just not all here yet, but as it comes online, we do want to make sure that coordination is happening with our
look into that.
City.
I will look into that, Mr. Majors. I have been in contact with Ms. Dow Ford.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also I'll contact Mr. Farr from Capital Area Transit. Maybe he can provide some assistance as far as transportation.
Yeah, maybe some rides and yep, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Peters and Ms. Bowers. Anyone else?
I had one more. Just wanted to touch on the comprehensive plan. We will have our third hearing. I don't know if this will be a last one next Wednesday at 6 p.m. And details are on the city's website. One thing I'd like my colleagues to consider is what we should do moving forward. I have had conversations with President Williams and the mayor, expressing my concern that I feel that the digital way of doing these hearings, sort of the only option we have at the moment, may not be sufficient for the public comment or feedback that we would like to see. So one suggestion would be to see if we could partner with either the school district or maybe another entity for a large space where people could safe distance with CDC guidelines and do some sort of in-person town hall and/or hearing. So that's sort of what I'm thinking now, but would love to get the comments and feedback from my colleagues on an outreach plan to make sure that we give every effort for folks that want to contribute or give feedback on the plan, that ability to do so. Yeah, just wanted to put that on everyone's radar, and that's it.
So Dave, the next meeting is actually next Wednesday, March 10th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
At 6.
Okay. Any additional comments, questions, or good and welfare? Okay. And motion to adjourn now, please.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.